Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, April 14th, 2020 Montgomery County Council meeting. For the first announcement, Madam Clerk, do you have any announcements or petitions?
Yes, Mr. President. There's one announcement. The council is seeking applicants for the Montgomery County Planning Board. The deadline to apply has been extended to Friday, April 17th, 2020 at 5 p.m. We have no receipt for petitions. We do have an addendum with a few items. For the consent calendar, we have a correction for the introduction of the special appropriation to the county government's FY20 operating budget. Department of Finance, $5 million for Economic Development Fund, Public Health Emergency Grant Program, source of funds, General Fund Reserves. The changes lead sponsors, County Council. Public hearing action is tentatively scheduled for 4/21/20. Also deleted from the council sitting as Board of Health, 6A, introduction, resolution to adopt a Board of Health regulation concerning the use of face coverings and other social distancing measures. Lead sponsors, council members Reamer and Albornoz. Co-sponsors.
I'm not hearing anything.
The clerk's been muted.
Can you hear me now? I'm not sure where I dropped off.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah,
okay. Deleted 6A, council sitting as Board of Health. Public hearing action, resolution to adopt a Board of Health regulation concerning the use of face coverings and other social distancing measures. Added to the agenda, legislative session day 13, introduction of bills, introduction expedited bill 2320, contracts, management and disposal of goods and emergency procedures. Lead sponsor, council president, at the request of the county executive. Public hearing action is scheduled for 4/21/20 at 1:30 p.m. Also deleted, calls for bills for final reading. 8A, expedited bill 1720, carry out bag tax suspension. Action is now tentatively scheduled for Thursday, April 16th. That is all, President Katz.
Thank you very much. I did want to note that for item number 8, which is the public hearing 1720 for the carry-out bag tax suspension, we're going to have the public hearing today, but the vote will not be today. The vote will be on Thursday, which is obviously April 16th, this Thursday. And Councilmember Reamer, you had something to say, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment briefly on the removal from the agenda of the proposed Board of Health regulation on facial coverings that Councilmember Albornoz and myself had proposed about a week ago. It has been a very helpful conversation that we've had about the need to require residents to wear facial coverings when they are customers in essential settings like grocery stores particularly. There's been a growing awareness that frontline workers are exposed to customers who may be contagious but are not showing symptoms. And there's a lot of research that shows that wearing a facial covering, even a one-ply t-shirt fabric covering, substantially reduces the amount of vapor that you project, and that slightly better fabric will reduce even more of it and can get pretty close to medical grade, surgical mask level of reduction. So from a health perspective, it is really an important measure. And I don't know that the county was going to embrace this without the council's strong advocacy on this point. So I want to thank everybody who joined in that advocacy, and of course, especially Councilmember Albornoz as our chair of the HHS committee. But broadly speaking, what I really like about this initiative is it conveys every resident, when they wear a mask, conveys their own commitment to responsibility and protecting people around them. And it is as much a social movement to put on a visible sign of our all care and our community concern as it is an individual measure to reduce our own contagiousness. So I think it has been sweeping the nation. We are one of the first jurisdictions in the country to talk about a regulation, and it is growing and rising all around. So I think it has been a big success. I do appreciate Dr. Gales issuing the order that was effective yesterday. So now it is effective for all grocery all customers in stores. And I think we'll keep an eye on how it is implemented and see if there are additional measures that are needed. But I do want to thank everyone. It's been a very big conversation. It's not on the agenda any longer for today because in light of the health officer issuing the order that was effective yesterday, we no longer needed to act on an order before the council today. So that's a good way for the process to work. So again, thank you. I do think this has been a terrific community response and very helpful from a health perspective. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Hucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just on this topic, while it's off the agenda, I wanted to myself just thank Council Members Reamer and Albornoz for driving this debate forward. I think it's really timely. I think you all remember the first time we sat down, I believe, with Dr. Gales and Dr. Stoddard. I was asking then, can we have stricter guidelines than the CDC, or do we have to be bound by the CDC since they've been behind the curve on some of this? As some people said, for the first time, people can remember, they're not really a trusted partner in this. And we need to do whatever makes the most sense to protect our residents. That's our charge and our responsibility. We should be informed by the science. But I think it's great that council members drove this forward, and I'm grateful to Dr. Gales for issuing his order. And I'm grateful that we're getting ahead of so many other jurisdictions because we really need to do whatever it takes to protect our retail workers in this case and the public as a whole. So thanks to both of you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to extend my thanks for the leadership of Council Members Reamer and Albornoz in helping push this issue. And I agree with the sentiment that the Unified Council, based on sound science and public health policy, helped push this healthcare directive and is making our community safer. And I also just want to recognize the outpouring of support that the community is providing at this point in time. I was just wearing this face mask with the Maryland flag on it, which was produced right here in Kensington. An apparel retailer, as local and as small a business as one can get, has retrofitted their operation to be able to produce face masks for the residents, for the community, for anybody who needs. And now there are face mask circles that are popping up around the community in churches, in civic organizations. And I think it is absolutely the sentiment that we want to continue sharing, that we are all in this together, that people are using their time and talents creatively. And I think it is a beautiful sentiment, one that will bind us together and also keep us safe.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I also want to thank all my colleagues. This is definitely has been so far an interesting adventure. We here at the local level have had to truly reinvent and do everything possible to be proactive in a situation that none of us could have envisioned. And unfortunately, as it was said before, it's not as if we've been able to receive the proper guidance from the federal government. So this has not been an easy process. And what I can say with certainty is that, I've been very, very proud to serve with a group of people that are constantly thinking about what is next in terms of protecting our residents and how do we best provide guidance and work around the clock to be proactive in this kind of unprecedented pandemic. So, thank you to all of you, especially, of course, Councilman Albornoz and Reamer in this respect. I think that I can speak for all of us that we've all been holding hands and figuring out, and that's holding hands virtually, of course, trying to figure out what is the next best thing, and our residents deserve a lot of thanks as well as our small businesses who are stepping up in this time. So I really wanted to express that appreciation, but also send a very clear message that there is no real specific guidebook. We are doing everything possible to protect our residents as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate everybody's efforts in this regard. I really do want to thank Dr. Gales and his team, as well as Dr. Krell, for the very healthy discussion we had that led to the ordinance by our public health officials, which I think makes a lot of sense in other jurisdictions. DC has already moved in this direction as well, and we suspect other local jurisdictions will too, because a regional approach is very important. But as we all know, getting the message out is also very important. And so I think I really want to applaud the efforts to reach out to our multicultural communities so that they understand what this is and what it is not. And as we continue to provide support to get the word out to our community, policies like this, I think, are going to make a difference and help save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I really just want to, again, thank everyone. And I really want to thank our grocery store workers. A lot of them had contacted us directly, all of us here on the council, as well as other folks in county government, and said, hey, we need to make things safer. And I think that, again, this is a culmination of the community coming together with our health leaders to really promote a best practice for us that we know makes a lot of sense. And so from that perspective, I just really want to thank folks for, again, having their voice heard. And I think that that's really important. And I made
We are frozen.
So thank you, Mr. President.
I don't know whether everybody else, it was frozen for me on my screen. I don't know, was it frozen for everybody else what Craig had to say?
With all of us. We missed you, Craig.
Yeah.
You gotta repeat it.
Craig, are you still there?
It's frozen again.
Excuse me.
It appears that Craig is having an issue. He'll need to drop off. Looks like he already has, and join us again.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting for Craig, Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. You caught me chewing an apple. Everybody, good morning. I'm sorry. I thought I had a little more time. Good morning, everybody. And I also wanted to comment on this. I think we came to a good solution here with not having to issue a Board of Health regulation, but allowing the health officer to issue guidance that also, and I know I've heard from many people, in addition to wanting to make sure our grocery workers and retail workers are safe as they're interacting with the public, we also want to make sure that people understand that we understand the potential anxiety and that comes with the face covering, and it's important to say face covering. You hear mask, and I think I've heard some people say, "Oh, I can't get a mask. I don't have an N95. There's no way that I can get it." And we actually don't want you to have those. We want those reserved for our healthcare workers and folks that are interacting with folks with the virus. And so I think a very important part of this order was that there's no civil penalty or fine associated with residents not having these coverings. Now, you might be turned away from a grocery store because we want to keep people safe, but there's no penalty. And at the same time, we're working hard to make sure there's guidance out there. I've posted, I know others have, how you take a t-shirt and cut it at the bottom you don't need a sewing kit, how to make a very effective mask similar to the one Councilmember Glass held up. And so we understand that anxiety. We're also working to try to acquire more face coverings for people that might have issues. We're working to translate the guidance. So I just wanted to say, while I'm appreciative, I think it's the right step we took as a county, that we understand that there's anxieties with this, and we're trying to make sure we address those as well in how it's rolled out and how we support the initiative. So really thank everyone's work, and thanks everyone for sticking with us during this process.
Thank you. I understand Councilmember Rice is back with us.
Yes, I apologize. I've got 2 children who are also on my Wi-Fi, so unfortunately it gets a little slow during Zoom classroom time. We're all on together, so I apologize for that. I switched over to a different network, but just wanted to say thank you to our grocery store workers for all of what they've done in terms of communicating with us and letting us know about trying to make their environment safer. This is really important because we want to make sure that folks understand that their voices are heard during this pandemic, and we're continuing to be responsive and trying to do the best that we can to ensure their safety and our community as a whole safety. And so I really want to thank all of my colleagues, because I know every single one of them has heard from individuals in our community, as well as those employees who are on the front lines, who are asking for best practices. I know sometimes it requires a little bit of pushing for some of our experts in the healthcare field, but I think that we've continued to do what's best in the interests of our community as a whole. And so I really think that we've come up with a great place, and I just really want to thank Dr. Gales for all that he's done in terms of continuing to listen to the constituency and continue to push us forward. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I too want to thank Dr. Gales and Dr. Crowell and everyone else associated with this. This is probably the longest discussion on an item that we've ever had that's not on the agenda. But we all realize that the reason this is not on the agenda is because Dr. Gales, who does a wonderful job, not just on this topic, but others, certainly looks at what is necessary to be looking at and advises us as to what we should be doing, and advises the public what they need to be doing. And of course, he has the authority to force that. So thank you all. It's been said many times today, but we sincerely appreciate everyone's efforts. The next item that we have is the approval of the minutes have been distributed for March 11, 2020. And unless there are any corrections, they will be approved as received. I hear no objections. Okay. The next item that we have is the consent calendar, and we need a motion and a second for that. Who would like to do that?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Rice.
Second, Navarro.
Seconded by Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Navarro would like to speak on the topic.
Thank you, Mr. President. So a couple of items that I wanted to point out. This consent calendar has 4 items, which are the resolutions. This is the introduction of the resolutions to indicate the council's intent to approve or reject provisions of the collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police, with our municipal and county government employees organization, McGEO, with our Career Firefighters Association of the International Association of Firefighters, IAFF, and also with our Volunteer Fire Rescue Association. I wanted to point that out because, of course, we are right now going through some very unpredictable times, and we don't quite know how everything is going to shape up regarding our FY21 budget. Nonetheless, I wanted to stress that more than ever, our employees, our frontline employees, our essential workers are doing extraordinary work right now to serve our residents, to ensure that our residents continue to receive the services that they need, but also going above and beyond in terms of this COVID-19 crisis. They are doing things that perhaps before they were not even doing, and they're just amazing. And so I just want to say that I think it's important that we understand and recognize the fiscal realities, but as we do that, we need to do whatever possible to ensure that our employees are treated fairly and are actually recognized for the extraordinary valiant work that they're putting forward. I also wanted to point out item 3G. This is an audit committee item, and this is to approve a resolution to give SMB and Company for them to conduct the audit work for the county. And this was the fourth and final year of the council's current contract with Clifton Larson Allen. And I want to also express, my appreciation for all their work. The Inspector General had suggested that we begin to rotate. And so that is what led, of course, to another round of proposals, and this particular company was selected. So I wanted to point that out as something that we're doing. And then, of course, I wanted to talk about item 3I, which is an introduction of a special appropriation for $5 million. This special appropriation is particularly to be targeted to restaurants as well as retail storefront establishments. This council acted in record time on March 31st when we adopted a $20 million special appropriation to create, a bill to create a grants program for small businesses and nonprofits. And during that particular debate, all of us had a lot of interest in how could we target particular amounts of that $20 million to our restaurants and our retail storefront establishments. We agreed on a 25% level. There were a lot of different proposals, but we wanted to act and we wanted to come to a compromise, which we did, and I think that was a wonderful thing. But nonetheless, we felt that we wanted to come back and see what else we could do. This particular introduction, which is an introduction by the entire council, is to provide an additional $5 million. And hopefully this will go, a long way in assisting many of our small businesses. We know that as a local jurisdiction, again, there's only so much that we can do. But the fact that we're, stepping up, I think is super important. Obviously, everybody is very interested in doing whatever we can. I'll say that Councilmember, Albornoz and Hucker very quickly wanted to jump on and make sure that we could add some more money, but really all of you have worked really hard in this particular arena. So this is that introduction. It is to be adopted next week. I will comment that, one of the reasons why I thought it would be important to introduce and then adopt next week is because we are awaiting eagerly what the administration, for them to open up the application process for the initial $20 million. I am hopeful that this will happen on Wednesday, as they have indicated, but felt that it would be good to first see how that goes and then stagger this additional $5 million. But there's no doubt that we continue to assess and continue to try to figure out how to best support our small businesses. So thank you all for working together. I want to thank my staff for immediately working with our 6th floor staff, who are amazing, to draft this resolution, get it all together, and thank all of you for the support.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you to Councilmember Navarro. I just wanted to reiterate some of those points, including the work that Council President and the GO Chair and I, as members of the Audit Committee, which now includes the Council Vice President, Councilmember Hucker, with the 3 of us working on it. I'm very familiar with SB and Company's work. They do a lot of work at the state level. I'm happy that we are bringing in new perspective on the audit, which I think is something that is requested and recommended by the Inspector General, as was noted by the GO and Audit Chair when this was conducted, and I think that it's the right direction to move in, and it's also a Maryland-based minority-owned company, which I think is also an added bonus, although not the reason why we selected them in the first place, but I think it's a positive move for us to be heading it. On the $5 million, I appreciate Councilmember Navarro and other colleagues for moving forward. We all recognize and have discussed since the introduction of the grant the need to make sure that particular businesses that have been hit the hardest, particularly retail and restaurants that were shut down first, have seen disproportionate impact, are protected. I think that has been a positive outcome of the work that we have done, and part of the, I think, amazing, not just record time, but incredible consensus that we reached as a council, working closely with the executive staff. I would be remiss, however, if I didn't express my deep disappointment and frustration with the delay in getting the full $20 million that we appropriated, intended to get out to businesses that desperately need it as quickly as possible. I share the hope that the funding finally gets out tomorrow, and that all of it gets out as quickly as possible. We appropriated that $20 million. We created this program to get that full funding out as quickly as it can to the businesses that need it to keep their lights on. We recognize that we can't wait for the federal or state government to step in to help our businesses, that we are closest to the people, and therefore we should be in a position, while limited resources, to move the quickest, to get the funding out the fastest, and to be able to move forward. And so I'm supporting it because I know how desperately needed the businesses are, but I'm a little uncomfortable by the fact that we're appropriating additional funding for a program that the executive branch has not figured out a way to get up and running. And that is deeply disappointing, and I hope that it is solved tomorrow so that by the time we actually appropriate this funding next week, this program not only will be up and running, but the funding will be out by then, because the businesses can't afford not to. And then just the last point, as was noted by Councilmember Navarro as well, on the contracts, I have not heard anything from the executive branch to us on any discussions that have taken place. We all recognize that not only was the budget written at a time before this crisis that created a whole new world and a whole new normal, the contracts were negotiated at that time. I share the sincere appreciation for all of our county employees who are doing incredibly difficult and challenging work, and also our first responders who are on the front lines along with our healthcare workers to make sure that we're keeping our community safe and healthy and protected. But I'm also disappointed by the fact that I haven't heard of any conversations. I think it's important for us to note that we don't bargain as a county council. We accept or reject contracts, and it's very difficult, I think, to be put in a position where we have no understanding at this point, up to now, of any ongoing conversations and discussions based on what those contracts may look like, whether there's conversations that are taking place between the units and the executive branch. And I would hope that there's some leadership from the executive branch working with the bargaining units to come to an agreement where everybody could both reflect the moment that we're in and be sensitive to it, which I know that there's an interest in doing, some shared sacrifice, but also in respecting the work that they do. Up to this point, we haven't seen it, but I'm hopeful that before we vote on the contracts, that we will get the type of leadership that the county needs and that we need in order to move forward. So with that, thank you, Council President.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to thank Barry Kaplan for applying for the Board of Investment Trustees. He's got a terrific background and set of experiences for that work, and he's going to be a great addition to the board, and we really appreciate that. On the question of the $5 million appropriation, which I'm very pleased to support, I just want to observe that I was certainly supporting this, anticipating that we would be doing more of this type of funding. So since, this is fine as another step, we're probably going to be doing substantially more than this in the long run. But I do think we ought to get coordinated now and try to be strategic here and work as a group. And we are waiting for the executive branch to get this program rolling out. As Councilmember Friedson said, they have a plan to disperse a portion of the funds that we allocated previously, but they're still working on a strategy to be effective with the remaining funding. So we hope that they will pull in as many staff as possible to execute that in a timely manner, and then that they will be able to present to us, right away, a very thorough review of the businesses that have applied and the sectors that they're from and the parts of the county that they're from, and all of these elements to help us understand what kind of businesses are seeking our support at this time. And then really from there we can try to be a little more comprehensive and thorough in how we add additional funding. So I'm glad to support this. I believe very strongly that the restaurant sector, we can't lose our restaurants. My sister runs a restaurant in North Carolina. I worked in restaurants. I understand the dynamic that's at play when the government essentially is forcing your business to shut down. What are you supposed to do? So this is going to be $5 million well spent, but I think for the next phase of this, let's try to all work together on a bigger picture strategy. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I want to join the chorus of praise and acknowledgement of our county employees who are stepping up in significant ways. I just want to give two specific examples. My colleagues in the county's recreation department have partnered with the Jewish Council for Aging to deliver meals to seniors who would be receiving meals through the senior nutrition program at our senior centers, and have also developed online platforms to engage our youth, and are relaunching Montgomery's Got Talent virtually, and thinking of just many, many creative ways of continuing to serve our community through this difficult time. And staff within our county's Health and Human Service Department have stepped up to provide additional support at our homeless shelters, our health clinics, and are also working on the front lines to help distribute food through our food security system. So staff are doing everything they can to support our community in this incredible time of need. And I really do want to thank Councilmember Navarro and Councilmember Hucker and all of my colleagues for stepping up to provide this additional amount of funding for our restaurants and retail, who have as has been noted many times, have been disproportionately impacted by this through no fault of their own, and have been stepping forward to creatively try to support their communities, our communities, by providing takeout and thinking of other creative ways to serve patrons during this time. But we also acknowledge that, wow, we still have a ways to go before we get through this particular surge. And then as we slowly begin to alleviate over time some of the policies that have had to have been implemented, it's going to be quite some time and months before things look anything like they did before all of this started. And so these investments are critical to keep these organizations hanging on as they have to make extraordinarily difficult decisions on how to move their operations forward, and gut-wrenching decisions on whether or not to keep their staff. And anything that we can do to keep them going is, I think, as Councilmember Reamer said, money well spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with everything that's been said, especially about the sacrifices and the hard work that are being made by our county employees. But I wanted to speak to the special appropriation, the additional $5 million. I'm grateful to my colleagues, Councilwoman Navarro and Councilmember Albornoz, for their leadership on this. I know I gave remarks just 2 weeks ago about the importance of retail and restaurants and how they're being uniquely hammered because of the need for social distancing in this recession. So I won't repeat all that, but I do want to say, after talking to so many business owners in Silver Spring and Tacoma Park and Wheaton and Long Branch and White Oak and Burtonsville over the last couple weeks, every day, I'm only more convinced that the $5 million we set aside out of the 20 in the Public Health Emergency Grants Program was the right thing to do, and yet it'll be insufficient. And so it's really appropriate and smart that we're doing this today. I don't think this is going to be sufficient, but it's very timely and needed. And I share the frustration with the pace of getting the money on the street and the applications posted. I'm glad the administration stood up the website last week to help business owners prepare their documents. And I hope that while we've been waiting for the application and the guidelines, business owners have taken advantage of that. I know I've been in touch with many who have, to get their house in order and prepare to get an application out very quickly and have all the documentation in place. Separately, I've been advocating for a simple application and clear guidelines and clear safeguards against duplication and fraud, so that we aren't spending too much time micromanaging the application itself, but we're taking applicants' word for it that they're submitting under penalty of perjury truthful information to the government, and we can get the money on the street as quickly as possible. And I know the county executive has been frustrated too, if he were on here, with the pace of getting this stood up. They intended, you all know, to have it stood up by Monday, and now with some technical issues, it's going to be tomorrow, and cross your fingers, I'm hopeful it'll all be tomorrow. But I'm really glad we're doing this. Nancy and Gabe, thank you for your leadership on this, because we know our funds are limited. We can't do everything. We need more from the state and the feds. But if we're going to target our resources to where we get the greatest bang for the buck and help, we have a lot of our economy that has been slowed down, and we have other parts of our economy, namely restaurants and retail, that have been completely devastated and shuttered. And it's going to stay that way for a while. So if we can invest our limited dollars in the right places to get those businesses to keep the lights on if they're thinking of going out of business, or reopen as quickly as possible if they already have shut down, that's the best investment, I believe, for our limited dollars. And thank you all to the point of how limited our funds are. Thank you all for signing the letter to and the county executive as well, the letter to the governor asking to release $500 million from the rainy day fund. The comptroller stuck his neck out on this as well, and I'm glad that we're in a unified way asking for that as well, because the state really, those $10,000 state grants are insufficient. And they closed, and there's a huge demand for them, and it's shown by the fact that they opened and closed the application within a couple of days. They're way oversubscribed. Business owners can't expect that much help from the state, unfortunately, yet, and we really hope the governor will release those rainy day funds. And to Hans's point, Hans and I have talked about this, but I've also, just in terms of the crush of applications that we expect to get from our small business owners, I've been in touch with the county executive every day, including like 2 hours on Easter, and he asked me to put together a small group of business owners to meet with him on Saturday, and we did that. I've really pushed him to get all the staff available at OMB and at the finance department and at the EDC, and assign them temporarily to review these applications and get the money out the door as quickly as possible. It's the most important thing we could be doing to recharge our economy once it's safe to do that, and the government shouldn't be the source of delay in this. So anyway, thanks to both of you for your leadership on this, and all of you for your support, and makes me proud to work here. Thanks.
Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I'm not going to repeat everything that my colleague said. Let me just give a real world example. I just got an email yesterday evening from First Watch saying that they were closing their restaurants. And this is an example of what we continue to see, folks who are trying to make a go of it, trying to last, and are really having a tough time. And every day that we delay means that businesses are making really tough decisions about shuttering their doors and laying people off. And the more we can keep these businesses afloat and keep them going, the better it will be for us in the long run, because we all know how hard it is to start a business. And it's almost as hard to reopen a business that has been closed. You have employees that have been disengaged. You have to start with all of inventory all over again in some cases. I mean, these are very complicated things. And so it really does behoove us to make sure that we're doing this sooner rather than later. So I share a lot of the frustration that exists when it comes to folks who are experiencing the delays. We thought this was going to be Monday, and now it's hopefully going to be tomorrow. We cannot wait. And I can guarantee you that money will be gone quickly. And then we'll need to do, this $5 million. And I know that there will be more people who will still need additional funds. We haven't talked a lot about our arts community, but they are out there as businesses as well. They are concerned about where they are going to fall in the ranking of importance. I've told them and encouraged them to make sure they apply on Wednesday, but we know that there's not enough money to go around. And so certainly there are so many organizations who do such great work here in our community that we're going to need to make sure that we're highlighting all of them and making sure that we can spread as much of that money around as possible. So I just really want to thank everybody for their support, for their leadership. This is all of us working together. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glaze.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think, again, this is the consent calendar, which should be deemed the collaboration calendar, because we have all all been really putting combined effort into protecting every aspect of Montgomery County life. And $5 million, I want to applaud my colleagues, as has been noted, for continuing to recognize that our restaurants and retailers and small businesses continue to need help. The restaurateurs and some retailers with whom I've spoken with in the last 2 weeks, some of them didn't even know about the efforts that we've put forth so far. So while we know that a lot of our businesses know about the $20 million economic stimulus that we passed 2 weeks ago, where applications are not yet ready to go online, which is a problem. We know that there will be more need, so I appreciate the collaborative effort to include $5 million more. But I also think that there are other areas where we will need to support our community, as Councilmember Rice just said, the arts and humanities community. There are organizations that have cut their staff by 75%. There are others that are no longer likely to be in business because they are so small, and there are no buyers of their product. There's no market out there for them. And as a former ED within that community, I've been talking to a lot of people, and there is legitimate fear and concern about their organizations even existing beyond this. But there's one other area I would just quickly like to address. Last year, there was a joint committee hearing by the Fed and HHS committee talking about the rental subsidy program here in Montgomery County that has been around for 20 years but has not been updated in any which way. I've been taking a lot of time looking at this, looking at the conversations that we had at that committee session, and I have some thoughts I'll be sharing with my colleagues and will be presenting at a future council session. But what that tells me is that there's a lot of things that we can be doing here in the county to update our processes, modernize our procedures, whether it is 20-year-old rental subsidy programs that haven't been updated, that have wait lists that exceed the number of people who are currently benefiting from a mere $200 a month in a subsidy, again, that hasn't been updated in 20 years. But then also, as has been mentioned, there's some tremendous work. There's tremendous work that's been being done by our nonprofit partners. I was recently working with the Jewish Council for the Aging, recognizing that they had a bus fleet, probably about 8 or 10 buses that used to take seniors and other individuals to day centers. And now that those are all shuttered, they had these bus fleets that were sitting idle. So I put them in touch with DHHS and with some other agencies and said, let's rethink these contracts. We have established relationships of organizations that are doing tremendous work, but they're not helping as much as they can. And trust me, they wanted to help. And so now, because of the cutting of red tape, JCA will be providing service to transport more food for the Food Council and helping distribute that tremendous need that only continues to get deeper here in the county. And so in summation, I think this is a really good opportunity for us to look inward in county government and find those efficiencies, find those areas where we can cut the red tape and actually modernize our contracting procedures so that moving forward, we are more efficient. Moving forward, we can better utilize the resources from the private sector, nonprofit sector, or public sector. And ultimately, knowing the fiscal situation of the county, we are better stewards of our taxpayer dollars. And I know this is a goal that we all share, as has been commented on during this session. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, colleagues. I appreciate all the support regarding this particular special appropriation. And I just wanted to also comment that, somehow it's been characterized as a unique thing. This is not a unique thing. This is just adding and enhancing something that we started doing. I want the public to understand that we have been very busy, really, truly not just working on what may we put forth in a comprehensive fashion to address this particular pandemic, but also what will happen after the pandemic. And so we are working on parallel tracks, and I sent everybody a memo asking the Office of Legislative Oversight to begin to produce papers that will inform us in terms of what we need to address and how can we adapt, be nimble, pivot after the particular pandemic as well. That is, I think, a very important thing for our public to understand. We're not working in silos. We're working together. We are working collaboratively to put forth particular proposals that will respond in a very quick way to the issues that we're seeing in real time. Are we a little bit behind? I would say, yeah, but not because the council didn't act, because it has taken longer, I think, for the administration to get this going. And I will also say that, I do hope the executive will reach out to all of us to put forth, meetings with small businesses. We all have small businesses that we are working with, addressing issues. We're on the phone, we're doing all of this. It is important to make sure that we are covering all of the bases, but it's going to take everybody working together. There's a lot of work right now going on regarding the emergency cash assistance to needy families, working with our nonprofit organizations. All of us, and Councilman Albornoz in particular, been leading a lot of those issues. We're working on all levels. So I just felt that it's important for our residents to understand that we are in this in a collaborative fashion. We also understand, and we knew that there would be disproportionality regarding the effects of this pandemic. And after looking at the data that was released by the governor, now it's right there in front of us. We've known all along, this is not new. These are things that we've been working on for a very long time. But all of these particular appropriations also address those issues because it is all connected. It's not one thing or the other. And so I just really want everybody to know, not you guys, because we've been, dealing with this together, but the public to understand that we will continue to work on comprehensive measures, but there's some things that we just have to do right now. And this particular one is an important one. I know next week we'll be introducing a couple of other important special appropriations. And I think everybody who's thinking also strategically about how we can leverage resources and how we can rethink the use of some of our resources, that is also part of what we're doing. We're not just adding money and adding money, we're looking at how to leverage as well. So again, thank you everybody for the support. And obviously, again, this is why this is a council special appropriation. It's because we've all held hands and done it. Usually somebody leads the way, and I'm happy to follow when somebody leads many of these things, because this is all about us as a council, as an institution, responding to the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I too want to thank all the employees for everything that they're doing. I realize this is a consent calendar, and therefore I don't know that we have to have as much discussion on a consent calendar. But I think it's extremely important to thank all of our employees who are doing the necessary work for each of us each and every day. And I do want to comment on that. I too am supportive of the $5 million, though I do believe that piecemeal is not always the best way to look at something in a comprehensive way. So I'm supportive of the $5 million, but I believe what is needed immediately is hopefully tomorrow, once the process starts for from the county executive side for the grant money, that we get the spreadsheet, that we know at that point what we're actually talking about and the numbers for the need that's there. We would go from that point being theoretical to being actual. And I think that is extremely necessary. And then we can start to figure out how much money, what we can and can't do, and how fast we can do it to give extra relief. And as far as, and Councilmember Navarro has certainly touched on it, as far as the after the discussion, first off, we have to get through this part of the discussion before we know the after. But I really believe that we need to immediately involve our community members. For those, as all of us know, none of us came up with these ideas on our own. Many people have given us many suggestions, as they should and as we need for them to do that. And I believe that we need to get together with their community members to figure out what they would suggest for the next steps. Because COVID-19, we don't know when it's going to end, but we do know that it will end. And we do know that we need to have everyone involved in how we're going to do that. And so I sincerely appreciate everyone's thoughts and everyone's efforts. And I think we need to continue to work together in a comprehensive way to figure out what our steps should be for the next step and for the many steps thereafter. And with that, we have a motion by Councilmember Rice and a second by Councilmember Navarro to approve our consent calendar. And I was going to try to do a hand vote, but I don't see everyone on the screen. So I don't know that we can do that. Madam Clerk, I guess we're going to have to do a roll call.
Sydney, if you just hit gallery view, you should get everything.
I have gallery review on here. I'll try it one more time. Yep, we're good. All right, thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, it carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to do interviews, and we have four people on the panel. Captain Willie Parker Lone, Captain Dinesh Patel, Captain Ron Smith, and Captain Tom Didone. Are they on the screen, or where are they at this moment?
Mr.
names.
President, they are all in the meeting, and would you like me to pin all of them to the screen or just one at a time?
Well, we're going to do it as a panel, so I think all four.
Okay, thank you.
Is everyone there? Are we getting there? There's Captain Didone. And I think there should be a correction as they're coming forward that every one of the people that I named are all acting chiefs. So we appreciate all their efforts as well.
Mr. President, all four are online.
Okay, I see Acting Chief Didone, Acting Chief Patel, Acting Chief Parker Lone, and Acting Chief Ron Smith. Very good. Gentlemen, thank you all for being with us today. As you know, this is not a usual setup that we do for panels, so thank you for working with us and for everything that you've done for Montgomery County up to this point and will be doing for Montgomery County after this point. We have I have a few questions that have been prepared, and what I'm gonna do is ask each of you to in order to give your explanation, and then for the second question I'll go to someone else to be the first person and so forth. For the first one, I'm going to start with Acting Chief Didone. How has your career prepared you for the position of Assistant Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My preparation began in 7th grade when I decided I wanted to be a Montgomery County police officer. And I've had a blessed career and worked my dream job for 34 years. In the first 13 years of my career in Montgomery County, which I was an officer and a supervisor, I began in the early 90s to learn the importance of community policing. Back then, crack cocaine had taken over most of our neighborhoods, and communities such as Lincoln Park and First Street were so overwhelmed by crack dealers that the residents couldn't even walk the streets. So I was selected to be a member of the first Lincoln Park Task Force, in which we actually worked out of a townhouse in that community. And over the years, we earned the trust, respect of the residents. We built strong community relationships, and we, in fact, returned the neighborhood back to the community. That was a rewarding experience and really showed me how to work in great partnership with the community. In the mid-90s, we recognized that teens were killing themselves on the highways. Drunk driving among teens and underage drinking parties were out of control. So I was selected to work on an underage drinking initiative in which we focused on controlling parties and preventing these children from getting on the roadways and killing themselves. This program received national recognition. It became a model program, and I received a county proclamation from the council for this efforts. In the late 90s, I was selected to supervise a crime analysis section. We received a grant from the Department of Justice to bring data collection, GIS, and trend analysis into our county so that the department could better utilize our crime fighting statistics. Over the past 20 years, I have been a captain on this police department and had the pleasure of supervising the records division, the special operations section, the Germantown district station, and as you know, the traffic division for 10 years. Additionally, I served as acting assistant chief on September 11th terrorist attacks, the sniper murders, and now COVID-19 crisis. Overall, I believe bringing 2 decades of executive leadership experience to the police senior management team is my greatest asset in preparation. I'm proven, I'm dedicated, I'm battle tested, and I'm a lifelong resident of Montgomery County.
Thank you very much. I did want to point out that Chief Marcus Jones is also here, though we don't see his picture. I know that he is here. We saw him earlier. Next, I'd like to ask Acting Chief Smith the same question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Katz and members of the council for inviting me to speak to you this morning. I've been a Montgomery County police officer since 1981. Started off my career in the Germantown district, where developing a strong sense of working with the community was vitally important because back in those days, there were very few police officers and a lot of ground to cover. So therefore, if you weren't able to work cooperatively with the people in the communities that you serve, you were working at a deficit. Many times we worked single officer patrols and were by ourselves dealing with the most violent and fluid situations. Normally that would be handled by multiple officers in the southern part of the county. I went from that district to the 6th district when it first opened. I've served at the training academy. I've spent 9 years in the special operations division where we served the entire community. Was involved in the initial stand-up of the automated speed enforcement program where we worked with a collaborative of various groups brought together from the community to establish the locations where we would conduct automated speed enforcement. Went from there to the Special Investigations Division where I worked countywide drug problems and served at the high point of the opioid crisis when it was first unfolding in the county, working with the various district commanders and community leaders to establish a response plan to address the concerns of the community. I've served on various boards and committees throughout my career, the Alcohol and Other Drug Advisory Council, the Alcohol Beverage Advisory Board, Pedestrian Safety Advisory Committee, the Regional Operations Coordination Committee, which works with transportation planners throughout the state of Maryland, the COG of Washington. I serve currently as the chairperson of the Crisis Negotiation Subcommittee. I've been a crisis negotiator for the past 31 years. I've been an executive officer for the past 17 years, and my last assignment prior to serving close to a year now as the acting chief of the Investigative Service Division was serving as the director of the Special Investigations Division. So I think My varied experiences across 3 different districts, 4 different divisions throughout the police department has prepared me to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Chief. Next, Acting Chief Parker Loon. Acting Chief Parker Loon?
Yes, I'm trying to unmute.
Okay, we understand how that works, believe me.
So thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I'm glad that each of you and your family members are doing well in these times of COVID-19. So I have been blessed with a long career with the Montgomery County Department of Police. I began my career in 1989 and have worked in 4 out of the 6 districts. Police executive in Montgomery County is the rank of lieutenant or above, so I will just briefly go through my years as a police executive. And I have been a police executive for 15 years and a police captain for 11 years. As a police executive, I served as a deputy district commander for the 4th district, which is the Wheaton area. I served as the administrative lieutenant to the Field Services Bureau chief, which is now the Patrol Services Bureau. I served as the deputy director of the Family Crimes Division, as the Midnight Duty Commander, as the 6th District Commander, which is Gaithersburg, Montgomery Village area, as the director of the Internal Affairs Division, as the director of the Special Victims Investigations Division, and finally as the acting assistant chief of police in charge of the Patrol Services Bureau, and that's just been since January. These assignments have provided me with different skill sets and experiences, and I believe have prepared me for the duties and responsibilities of being an assistant chief of police. I have learned about communication, accountability, empathy, leadership, transparency, decision-making, delegation, and empowerment. So thank you.
Thank you. And Acting Chief Patel.
Good morning, and thank you to everyone for the opportunity to be here today and speak to you. I've had the opportunity of working in part of this department since around age 15, beginning as a police explorer. I was born and raised in Montgomery County, and like Chief Didone, this is my passion of what I wanted to do since I was a child, and I'm proud to, and I know I'm fortunate to have a dream come true in doing this job for over 26 years. I've chosen to stay in Montgomery County and raise my family here as well. I've spent the last 26 plus years learning the profession of policing while serving in a variety of assignments to include Silver Spring, Wheaton, and Gaithersburg, in addition to headquarters assignments such as personnel in the Special Investigations Division. During my time in Silver Spring, I was fortunate to work in the Central Business District Unit, as well as 10 years on our Special Assignment Team. And both of those assignments were very formative in my development about really learning problem solving in some of our areas of most need. While learning about the profession, I also learned about the community and government and how it all works and works together. How when it does work together, it's more successful in actually solving those problems. And over the years, I've been able to build relationships which have led to, really focusing on problem solving, which I believe is the core of what we do in policing. I believe I have a unique set of experiences at Montgomery County Police, as well as at a regional and national level. I served as the vice chair for the Police Chiefs Technology Subcommittee. I'm the project director also for the Law Enforcement Information Exchange, which is a national information sharing project in partnership with the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. And I believe that those experiences have helped shape not only policy here in Montgomery County and in the state, but also at a national level. So it's been a great opportunity to serve in that way. I've had the opportunity to serve in both crime fighting roles, as I've described, as well as management roles in our personnel division, and formerly serving as a lieutenant for the Management Services Bureau Chief, which has showed me how things work behind the scenes and how an organization actually runs, as well as many technology projects over the years. I have a proven track record of challenging the norm and finding new ways to do things, often increasing our efficiency, which helps us have more time to do other things and focus on those proactive measures and problem solving. I believe putting the best information in the hands of our staff leads to better decisions, which leads to better outcomes for our community. And I truly believe that the culmination of my experiences and education coupled with my work ethic has prepared me for this moment to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is, why do you want to serve in the capacity as an assistant chief, and what do you hope to accomplish? And I'm going to ask Acting Assistant Chief Smith to please be the first person to answer.
Like to serve in this capacity is because of the time that I've spent on the police department. I have developed a lot of relationships and participated in many large spanning groups, not only within the county, statewide, and then also nationally. I am currently one of the team leaders for the Major City Chiefs Association Investigative Commanders or Intelligence Commanders Subcommittee. So I work locally, regionally, and nationally. By developing these relationships, and I think relationships are so important, you are able to streamline the way business gets done. I've been able to form relationships within the county government. I've worked closely with the Department of Fire and Rescue Services, Health and Human Services, Office of Emergency Management, and have developed many partnerships and relationships in the Department of Transportation. So by being able to streamline the way work is getting done, I can mentor and assist newer executive officers and investigators in the police department in doing their jobs to the best of their ability. Working in partnership with the community and various advisory groups is paramount. There are 1,300 sworn police officers in Montgomery County serving a population of over 1 million people. We can't do it by ourselves. We have to be able to form long-term relationships with people in order to get the job done. And the things that I would like to accomplish, specifically in the Investigative Services Bureau where I am now, is to recruit and select a varied and diverse group of candidates to serve within the Bureau. The Investigative Services Bureau, just like the police department, should be reflective of the community we serve, and that's important to me and the Chief of Police.
Thank you very much. Acting Chief Parker Loon.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. When Chief Jones became the Chief of Police, we had a one-on-one meeting, and I told him at that point that I would serve in whatever capacity he needed me in to make him successful in leading this department, and here I am. So I would like to thank Chief Jones and County Executive Elrich for affording me this opportunity to serve in such an important role. I would also like to thank the council for taking the time to conduct these interviews today and the upcoming vote so that the department can move out of the acting assistant chief positions and have stability at the senior management level. I've been a Montgomery County police officer for almost 31 years, and I love this department and I love this county. I attended junior high school here and high school and made the decision to raise my family in this county. Unlike Chief Dadone and Patil, I did not grow up wanting to be a police officer. When I attended Montgomery College, Tacoma Park campus, I knew a lot of black males who were trying to become police officers, and for some reason they couldn't. So I was like, what the heck is so hard about being a cop? And that's how I first joined the department. Throughout my career, I have embraced challenges, new opportunities, and additional responsibilities. Being an assistant chief affords me the ability to make substantive changes in the department. I believe there should be only one vision for the police department, and that should come from the chief of police. My role and what I hope to accomplish is to assist Chief Jones with his vision moving forward with this department. I know the council has established the Law Enforcement Trust and Transparency Act, the Policing Advisory Commission, the Racial Equity and Social Justice Act, the Community Policing Bill, and confirmed Tiffany Ward as the Chief Equity Officer. I am anxious to see how these improvements will assist the police department and look forward to working with those members and each of you and the Police Advisory Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Acting Chief Patel.
Thank you once again. I would like to serve as Assistant Chief to be able to make a greater difference to the department and the community. Every step of the way in this department, whether it was as a PO1 and then all the way up to where I've gotten to today, you realize that your voice gets listened to a little bit more, so you have to take those experiences that you gained along the way and then be able to make improvements and make the department better and the community better. I've been able to be fortunate enough to serve as an acting assistant chief since March 2019. And over that time, I've learned a great deal, was involved in the last year has been a tremendous amount of transition for our department. And we've had several significant incidents, and you learn through every one of those. And I've been very fortunate to work with a great team and build those experiences. And during that time, I've also built even more relationships and knowledge that I believe will help me be successful as part of Chief Jones's management team and execute the vision that he has and the team that he's pulled together to move in a direction that the department needs to go in, the community wants us to go in, and ultimately make both the workplace and the community safer doing so. I believe I can be an asset to help build trust and increase our engagement, because engagement is going to happen not only in person, as we know right now, but in virtual ways and different ways that people want to be communicated with. I believe I can be helpful in helping construct our crime fighting techniques and deployment strategies as our county continues to grow, and continue to support and enhance our workforce. I believe that I bring an ability to ensure that we have the best data and we can use it in a way to improve our community policing as well as our deployment and work safety strategies. In the next few years, I would like to continue our recruitment efforts both for police officers and our 911 team. Additionally, I want to continue to work on our technology, which will lead to greater information sharing and situational awareness. I believe putting the right tools and effective training will lead to a better team of officers and professional staff. And I believe improving the workforce ultimately improves our department, which then means results in positive outcomes for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Acting Assistant Chief Didone.
Chief Smith said, being Assistant Chief of Police affords you a better opportunity to make a difference and take advantages of the partnerships. I too am on the IACP Highway Safety Committee, which has national implications, and I've been able to see how having assistant chiefs and chiefs in these positions working in traffic has yielded greater success in moving their departments forward in the field of traffic. Personally, I've wanted to be an assistant chief because I've always wanted to learn. I wanted to maximize my learning how to run a police department, learning aspects of police work that I haven't had exposure to. Professionally, I want to be assistant chief because I wanted to help Chief Jones and his senior management team move this department forward in the right direction. I believe my years of experience and expertise will be an asset to him as we move forward in these challenges. As I said previously, I've had the fortune of being an acting assistant chief during some of the most traumatic times in our lives with the sniper murders and now COVID-19. And I want to use that experience in a positive direction. What I hope to accomplish as being an assistant chief is working with Assistant Chief Dinesh Patel in moving us forward with the collecting, analyzing, and using data. More importantly, as we evolve and the younger generation takes over, I want to be able to incorporate the use of this data and dashboards into our daily operations, because I believe that's the future of where this agency wants to go. And I can use the technical background and work collectively with Chief Patel to get this accomplished in the most reasonable time matched. Also want to work toward building the most effective and comprehensive traffic safety program. Our county has national leading model 8 aspects of traffic safety, but we haven't been able to merge them all into a comprehensive traffic system. Under the Vision Zero, with the support of both the county executive and the county council, I know we can incorporate traditional traffic enforcement into our daily operations so that we can maximize our effectiveness and, most importantly, save lives and continue to make a difference in our community.
Thank you very much. And the third question is, are there specific challenges you believe the department is facing, and how do you plan to address those? And the first person we're going to ask to give an answer on that is Acting Assistant Chief Parker Lone.
Okay, there has been a lot of focus on community policing, its definition, and the department's relationship with the community. Our community is constantly changing. We as a department need to be able to adapt to these changes as well. If we don't truly listen to our community, then we have missed a golden opportunity to understand their concerns, not just within their community, but with their interactions with the department. I believe, and it has been mentioned before, that the stronger the police department's relationship is with the community, the stronger and safer community we all enjoy. I've noticed that community meetings tend to have the same groups of people attending, and I often wonder, are they speaking for the larger community, and does that information trickle down to others? To get a better understanding of various communities, my plan is to partner with Chief Equity Officer Tiffany Ward, Director Diane Vu, Director James Stowe, and the Regional Center Directors. Hopefully these partnerships will provide contacts in communities who regularly don't reach out to and or trust the police. By district commanders, community service officers, community engagement division, and school resource officers will then make contact and try to establish a relationship of trust, set up community meetings, and engage in non-enforcement educational activities. I will also look to you and your staff for similar information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, I was not done, but.
Well, no. I thought you were. I didn't. Please continue. I did
just turning my page, sir.
Okay.
I know youth engagement is important for the police department and the community. So how do we reach out to our youth and form stronger relationships? I am encouraged by the chief's vision to reinstitute the PAL program and look forward to its implementation under the leadership of Captain Pruitt in the Community Engagement Division. I plan to meet with Morris Hudson and Luis Cardona to hear what suggestions they may have regarding this issue about youth engagement. Mental health issues. The national suicide rate in the law enforcement profession is alarming. We have experienced this pain within our department. I know there is work being done between the unions and the CE's office and the department. The stress and trauma to our employees face is real, so I applaud these efforts. I am also encouraged that OHR hired a second police psychologist last year. When I was the director of the Special Victims Investigations Division, I was handcuffed contractually to send my detectives to the Office of Stress Management. I created break days to allow some relief. One day I showed a movie for a couple of hours. Another day a group went to the only theater to see Singing in the Rain. Another time we had a shooting day at the outdoor range. I had a group of 25 folks going to the FBI Academy this month for a day of training, but due to the COVID-19 crisis, I canceled this training. So I am pleased to hear and know that Captain Don, the current director of the Special Victims Investigations Division, is continuing with these types of mental relief efforts for her staff. Our rating system. I believe our rating system can focus more on community policing, engagement. There needs to be the right balance on the importance of community outreach as well as enforcement efforts. There has to be time for every officer to engage in important community outreach efforts. Chief Jones has talked about reorganization, redistricting, and a patrol workload analysis due to the growth of our community. These efforts should allow for more focused community engagement from our police officers. and finally morale. What I will tell you is that members of the department feel that when sensitive or traumatic incidents occur, they are being immediately questioned by the media and politicians before all the facts are known. I recognize that each of you are extremely busy, but I plan on requesting to meet with you one-on-one to get a better understanding of your thoughts and expectations of the police department. Once the COVID-19 crisis has ended, I would encourage you, not a staff member, to meet with your district commanders at the police station. Attend a roll call, go on a ride along a few times a year. This will afford you the opportunity to speak with police officers and professional staff face to face in meaningful dialogue and let them know you care about them. I have attended council hearings where Council President Katz and other council members have applauded the work of our police department, and I thank you for that support. Even today, you've all expressed appreciation for public safety and first responder employees. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good. Thank you. Acting Assistant Chief Patel.
Yes, sir. From my perspective in the Management Services Bureau, I believe that our department and our community are facing several challenges. I'll name a few. We've certainly all been talking greatly over the last year or more about community engagement and trust. And I think we have to improve that on all fronts, and we do an excellent job. I believe we have a great team of our district community service officers and our community engagement division, and our cops on the street every day. But I think we need to do a better job in tracking that work and then finding new ways to engage people. I think one of the things is we need to meet people where and how they want to meet. I believe our society is going to be changed after this COVID-19 event, and we'll probably find ourselves doing more virtually, and that may actually fit people's lifestyles better to be able to be engaged and be involved, but to do it while managing many other challenges in their own life, from scheduling and trying to be someplace like a community meeting. I think we need to engage our community at all ages, but especially our youth. I think if we're going to make a difference in changing some of the conventional thought processes about law enforcement and what we do and how we do it and who we are, we need to engage even more with the youth. And I think our school resource officer program is a great opportunity there and to continue to build on. And my job in the Management Services Bureau is to really support the efforts. We run fleet and training and budget and technology, a lot of behind the scenes roles, but I think there's an opportunity there to really understand where the department's going, what our needs are, how we're going to engage better, and then support that. And I look at every engagement opportunity as a recruitment opportunity, and we need that now more than ever, both in our sworn ranks and at our 911 center. So I have a job to do there as being part of a Chief Jones management team to also be in the public and make those connections. So I'm looking forward to helping in community engagement in those ways. I believe recruiting and retention I've just spoken about is a major challenge for us. It's a national challenge. We're not alone, but we're in a very, very competitive workforce. Our environment here, prior to COVID-19, our unemployment was some of the lowest in the nation. And we have a lot of law enforcement agencies, both state, local, and federal. So that means that our pool of people have a lot of different opportunities. So we need to keep doubling down on our efforts, and our 911 center, as you all know, has critical staffing shortages. And I've learned a lot over the last year. I had a pretty good handle on police work, but the last year has really taught me a great deal about the 911 center and the challenges that they face. So I think we need to continue our recruiting efforts. Captain Augustine in our personnel division has done a great job of trying some new and creative things, and I think we need to keep going down that road. We've now made 911 hiring or recruiting as important as our sworn hiring. There's always been a lot of emphasis on sworn, but now we're trying to equalize that and make sure that we're investing properly in both time and resources. We need to continue to evaluate and streamline our hiring processes. We've done a lot of that already. We've done things where we've taken our test to remote sites like the University of Maryland rather than making people come to us. We've also done some online testing. And again, these are opportunities for us to connect with the new generation out there and make it a little bit easier for us to make that connection. So I think we need to keep going down those roads, as well as programs through Montgomery College and MCPS to develop the workforce even earlier than waiting until they graduate, whether it's high school or college, really getting to them earlier. And again, those are recruitment and engagement opportunities. And we need to keep looking at the competition and seeing how we can both benchmark and look at opportunities that may present more recruits for us. Employee safety and wellness is a priority for me. I think we need to keep looking at our employee safety and wellness and look at how we can improve training processes that we have, equipment, environmental challenges. I've been fortunate prior to this position to serve on our Joint Health and Safety Committee, both on the union side and management side, for about 18 years. And that's taught me a lot along the way. Employee mental health, I think, is another thing I've learned a great deal about over this past year, both in our 911 center and for our sworn staff, as we've all lived through. We know that we need to spend more time and effort on this. We need to remove the stigma of mental health so our employees can feel safer about going and getting help and being able to get treatment like we would for any medical condition and get better and be healthier and be more resilient. So I think from my perspective, working on programs that would build our resiliency. And last, I think I'd like to continue to work on our information management technology. One of my goals is to deliver our new records management system. We are in a current RFP process. I think it's going to very much help not just the police department, but also the council and the executive and the community really examine the data and statistics. And I always going to caution to make sure we have the context behind it. But we have a records management system from the early 90s, and we have not delivered a great tool either to our cops or our back office staff or the community. So I'm really looking forward to delivering on that. It'll give us better data to make better decisions with, and put that data in the hands of our personnel in the field, because we have a lot of really smart people that we hire, and they'll work with that data and they'll go solve problems if we give it to them the right way. I'd like to thank everybody, especially all the essential workers and managers that are making it happen every day to get us through this pandemic. I want to give a special thanks to the incident management team for COVID-19 on the police department, which I've been proud to lead so far through this event. They've been doing a tremendous amount of work, hidden away in a room, but really fighting through the problems, let alone all the cops and our staff that are coming to work every day and not missing a beat. And I'll wrap by just thanking each of you on the council for giving me the opportunity to be here, and I hope to be able to continue to serve full-time as an Assistant Chief.
Thank you very much. Acting Assistant Chief Didone.
Covered the large issues. I'll go into the things that are more streamlined and more important. I think our life after COVID-19. Our world is changing as we know it. We're in crisis and currently in survival mode. In 2005, I had the opportunity to lead a team of police and firefighters down to New Orleans to provide support for the residents of New Orleans in the wake of Katrina. And I saw what a crisis and a true devastation in a community occurred. And what came out of that experience was a lot of lessons learned. We are going to be facing a similar crisis. Although it wasn't a hurricane, I think the impact of COVID-19 and the long duration that this is going to cause the county is going to change county. It's going to change business. It's going to change how we have to do things. And I think most importantly is the senior management team is going to have to be able to work with the police department to react to these changes and recognize that serving the community is going to require us to do things differently and be able to adapt on the fly. In managing the Field Services Bureau, I get the pleasure of coordinating the Special Operations Division. The Special Operations Division does provide a lot of these services that you don't necessarily see on the front line, but they're working on the back line to support everything. We will continue to engage Special Operations Division, our Emergency Services Unit, to adapt and be able to respond to the needs of the community. It's critically important that the police department does support the community because the community has been supporting the police department during this time. And I believe the relationship, like what happened in Katrina, will occur where we will bond and we will join and we will work together because together we have endured this crisis. I will also work with our public information officer. We're looking at retooling how we get a message out, upgrading our technology, our website, and our ability to communicate. We see that social marketing and social media is such a critical point. I think we do as an agency, we do a lot of great things, but we don't proactively promote and advertise that. We will be doing a better job, and I think we are enhancing our communication with daily communications and getting the information out there so that we can build the trust and the respect of our community through transparency, through knowing how we're doing business, what we're doing every day, and working more collectively. I think that's critically important. One of the minor benefits of the COVID-19 is we've had a reduced amount of fatal traffic crashes. And yes, I am going to go there. Our Vision Zero, we're going to return to Vision Zero. Traffic safety is a paramount. We were on a record pace of losing lives on our roadways. And I think after COVID-19 crisis, unfortunately, I believe that traffic safety will become compromised. So we obviously are going to have to operate in a Vision Zero on a shoestring budget. However, after COVID-19, we're going to be maximizing our partnerships, that response that I talked about of working with the community. And it's things that we can do right now because these partnerships cost very little money. And we have excellent champions out there with our community and in Wade Holland, who is our Vision Zero coordinator. I want to use our imagination, our experience, and our expertise to work collectively with our community to fight that trend and to start impacting the tenets of Vision Zero so that we can keep our roadways safer. And I'm also going to empower our new traffic director, Captain Dave McBain, and our traffic division to continue these efforts as I move forward at the end of my term as Assistant Chief, modeling and mentoring our department agency. Chief Jones is a huge supporter of traffic. This is something that we're building for the future and that will live on much longer than the careers of these assistant chiefs that you're meeting with today. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. Thank you for the opportunity and the challenge moving forward. And I look forward to working with the council and the county executive to keep Montgomery County great.
Thank you very much. And Acting Assistant Chief Smith.
We're going through very trying times. I think my career in the police department, over 31 years on the emergency response team as a negotiator, an incident commander, a tactical commander, a member of our special events response team serving in Baltimore during the riots, has prepared me to work in trying times. Trust and rapport are the cornerstone of all relationships. What we're seeing right now is people who are at home sheltering, staying home to keep the community safe, and they're being victimized. We've seen a noticeable increase in domestic violence calls with firearms involved, and also serious physical abuse of children that are showing up in the emergency rooms of our hospitals. We're partnering and working with HHS, the Family Justice Center, nonprofit groups, the Sheriff's Office, the State's Attorney's Office to conduct outreach operations so that these people who are the most vulnerable in the community don't fall between the cracks. We're trying to reach out to them proactively so that they know that people are concerned, that we're concerned for their welfare. We've upstaffed and redeployed some resources in the Special Victims Investigations Division so that we have additional detectives that we can put forward to investigate these crimes quickly and resolve them effectively. That is important to the police department. It's important to this community. We don't want people to feel that they are left alone because they're at their homes. Typically, we would have, say, children would be in school, so teachers or other guidance counselors, faculty members might notice signs of abuse. Now we're not seeing that. So we have to raise the level of public awareness so people in our community can look out for one another. That's important. That's a paramount concern of the police department. It should be a paramount concern of the county government. That's why we're trying to partner with various groups to raise the level of awareness. One of the other issues that we're dealing with, and we're trying to establish a basis for and a capacity to investigate cyber crimes. We have fell victim to cyber technology crimes and cyber threats in the county over the past 2 years. We're trying to, working with other agencies and federal partners, to build a in-house capability to address this need because it is the crime of the future. Senior citizens have been victimized. The county's IT infrastructure has been attacked on numerous occasions. I know we all take these monthly tests that IT wants us to take to keep the system secure. It's for a reason, because the system has been attacked. There are ongoing attacks that have been thwarted by individual workers not downloading malware, and also through technological innovations that have protected the system at a larger scale. We're also on the outlook and keeping our eyes open to the instances of hate bias attacks. We have 2 documented events that we've noticed so far since COVID-19 in the Asian community, and we're doing outreach, and it's ongoing to let people know that we are engaged, we are looking out for their welfare, and we're also partnering within the region, the state of Maryland, the NCR, to collect data so that we're aware of what's going on, not only in Montgomery County, not only in Maryland, but throughout the region. We're also just looking to foster these partnerships. I mean, together we will get through this this crisis. It's going to change the way we relate to people. It's different. We're all learning new technologies. We're all learning how to use Zoom. We're all learning how to use Microsoft Teams, but I think it's going to benefit us, because what we can't do is let people feel that they're alone. We have to stick together and work with our community to keep it safer. So thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to address you. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much. And that concludes our formal questions. I do have several council members that wanted to ask some questions on their own. Let me just say that we are slated right after this panel to hear the COVID-19 update, and that it's my understanding, obviously we are running late, and it's my understanding that Dr. Gales and Dr. Stoddard have only until about 12:30 to be with us today. So I ask my colleagues to please keep their questions succinct. And then what we're going to do is move the legislative session to the afternoon so that we can hear from Dr. Gales and Dr. Stoddard. The first council member to speak is Council Member Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief. This is just a comment because all 4 of you highlighted issues that I wanted to raise regarding technology, mental health within the force, the importance of relationships, and the importance of positive engagement with youth. I particularly appreciated the comment in establishing positive benchmarks moving forward to really quantify community policing in a proactive way, which I couldn't agree with more. And it has been too long since I've done a police ride-along, and so I will be doing one this upcoming year for sure. I've had the opportunity to now participate in 4 installations of police force coming in, and I've always been struck by the families. I always look out into the crowd just as much as I look on the stage, and I see the look of pride, but also a little bit of anxiousness within those families. And I know that our first responders, and the term first responder has significantly expanded over these last 2 months. But what our police department does every day on behalf of our community is truly heroic. And I just want to express my appreciation to all 4 of you. I happen to know all 4 of you personally because we've worked together on various projects. And Tom, I see the picture of Ryan in your office, and I know how proud he is of you and continues to be of you, and how proud we all are of you and all 4 of you. And I'm so proud that we've been able to promote from within to help us with continuity of service, as you all indicated, during an unprecedentedly difficult time. We just are beginning to scratch the surface on the ramifications over the last 2 months and the deep recession that lies ahead, which will disproportionately impact your guys' work. So we stand with you, and we so appreciate the proactive measures that you're taking with regards to community policing, because without that trust, then it all dissolves. And we know that all of the efforts that this council, and I've been proud to stand with my colleagues in those efforts to help strengthen that trust, to make your jobs easier, but also to ensure that we keep our community safe. Because as we know, community policing means a lot of different things to a lot of different members of the community, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. But we have to maintain a high level of standard, and I know that we will, and I will be signing up for one of those ride-alongs soon. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to the 4 of you. I know you 4 personally. I've worked hand in hand with each one of you on a variety of issues, and so I can tell you with the utmost confidence that these are the best. These candidates represent everything from positive community engagement to positive interaction with our police force to holding our police officers accountable when they needed to be held accountable, as with any good director or manager. That's really what matters in a time like this, especially, but in a time where we are, when there's such a rift right now between our community and our police officers in some respects. I will say that in my district, we've been very fortunate. 2 of you have served as district commanders in my district, and so certainly from that perspective, it worked hand in hand, and we don't have necessarily the same issues as we're seeing in some of the other areas. But I will tell you that the key in this is that you understand why it's important for us to continue to have a very positive relationship with our community. And the only way in which we're going to solve crimes, the only way in which we're going to make sure that people are safe, is if people trust you. And so from that perspective, I trust you as being leaders. And that's where it starts, because then that trust then has to trickle down to each of the individuals that you are going to lead to make sure that we can all work together. And so I don't use that word lightly when it comes to trust. It is incredibly important. And every time we have a bad actor, they erode away at that trust. And so it's important for us to continue to make sure that we're holding ourselves to our highest standard, because we know how much that trust means and matters, and can unravel the great things and accomplishments that I think this police force has done. Each of you have contributed in your own way to make those things happen. And I just want to say thank you for that. As a person who's born and raised here in Montgomery County, I've seen the evolution of our police force. I've seen us go through some trials and tribulations and become a much better force that's really representative of what I think a lot of forces around the country should be. Do we still have problems? Of course we do. And I appreciate each of you acknowledging that and understanding that there's still things that we can do to get better to make sure that we're representative of our community. Commander Patil, you and I worked hand in hand when it came to the Montgomery College piece, along with Commander Luther Reynolds, and really growing the diversity in our police force, something that I encourage all of you to continue to do. I will just say, Chief Jones, congratulations. When you look at the diversity that's there in your leadership, it's apparent. I would just say one thing: as the father of 2 daughters, we need to make sure that we continue to push that woman representation and make sure that those leaders are there. And I know that they're there, and I know that other departments are stealing them from you. I work with each of them, and Laura and others in their own capacity. So, but certainly please continue to do that. Just keep up the good things that are going. There are a lot of folks out there who are working very hard to make sure that our police department is really one of the best in the nation, and I encourage you to support them in those efforts. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to all of the acting assistant chiefs here for just a few more moments for your very thoughtful and comprehensive answers to the questions. I mean, I really appreciated the preparation. I've had the chance over the last couple of years, some of you longer than others, to get to know each of you. I had a really good time having an interview with kind of the pre-interview with each of you through Zoom. So that's why we're so proficient today, the conference calls and Zoom usage, and really appreciated those individual meetings as well. Because as I think Councilmember Albernoz mentioned, you mentioned so many things that recognize how good this police department is, but that we can make it even better and that we can improve and build upon things. Whether it's, Assistant Chief Patil mentioning the records management and needing to track good outcomes. And I think Willie Parker Loan, I want to call you Willie, but I'm going to call you Assistant Chief Parker Loan here. Saying, really emphasizing that point of, which I've talked about a lot, and we talked about a lot on our call, of how do we make sure we can incentivize and track the really good interactions that are happening, which we know are happening, but because of either a poor records management system or not up to date, and the difficulty it requires to track those things or to include them in the promotion and the rating system. I think that's something that is really important. I'm glad you mentioned that. So I really appreciate that, because I think those are critical components of improving police community relations and making sure that the vision that I see like many of you, homegrown Montgomery County kid, as you know, worked in AmeriCorps with the police department. I looked up to police officers. I have a lot of mentors that are still in or retired from the police department. Wayne Farrell, Sonia Pruitt, Bob Carter, and I really value those relationships. So I appreciate all that you all said. I look forward to working with you and being a partner to make sure that we can get these things done. And to Captain or Assistant Chief Didone, thank you for your commitment, long service in the career to Vision Zero as well. I think, as you know, we're all very committed, even in tough budget times, to make that a continued priority. So we look forward to working with you on that, sir. And to Assistant Chief Smith, appreciate your candor and just honesty and service as well. So really appreciate it. Look forward to voting for all of you, and even look forward to more working with you to make sure that we improve the department. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you all for your candid conversations, a word that my colleagues are using because it's true. You spoke the truth. You talked about the work that's been done, and you talked about the work that needs to be done here. And I think that's an important self-reflection that I always appreciate. And I know that's the only way that we ever improve ourselves, is by having those moments to reflect and to see what we can do better. So I do appreciate that. Two quick points. Captain Smith, I really appreciate the sentiment that you shared about the welfare and safety of individuals in our community, particularly with regard to the current healthcare crisis that we are in, the domestic violence and the substance abuse. It's a conversation that some of us have been having with some of our nonprofit partners and others in the community, but I'll make a plug now to President Katz that as we continue having updates about the work that is being undertaken in our community, I would politely request that we add that element to future conversations, because that is a really important component. And we unfortunately know that there is a rise of domestic violence and of substance abuse. And so I would appreciate engaging further to see what we can do to fully protect the community to this crisis and related areas. And using that as a jumping off point to the comments that have been made by Captain Didone, I continue looking forward to working with you on the Vision Zero work that we're currently undertaking. And you mentioned that with people not being out in the community and people being largely confined to their homes or encouraged to stay in their homes, there has been a steep reduction in road violence. If there is a silver lining in any of this, but we've still had approximately 7 or 8 deaths in the year 2020 and approximately 110 individuals who have been struck in this year alone. But as you noted, those numbers were on course to be record-setting, which is not good. So let's continue these conversations. Let's continue the candor, because as we continue talking about making sure that every resident feels safe here in Montgomery County, we need to be mindful of what works, what doesn't work, and best practices throughout this country of ours. So I look forward to supporting all of you and working with you in the years to come.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to congratulate all of the assistant chiefs that will very soon not be assistant anymore. And just say, that I've obviously have been serving here in the county for a while, since 2004. And as I listened to you and as I heard you describe your experience and also what you look forward to accomplishing in partnership with so many of our community leaders and so many folks who work very hard on a daily basis on a grassroots level, really trying to make sure that we are constantly doing our best to include, to serve, to understand the nuances of all of our different sectors of our community. I've said this before many times, this county is a microcosm of our country. And it requires that we all really commit to understanding and to serving our constituents, right? Not just thinking about them as niche groups, but really understanding that these are our constituents. And what I heard all of you describe is a deep commitment to learning, to understanding, to partnering, so that we can do everything we possibly can to serve our residents. And of course, public safety being the #1 issue. So I am very gratified with all of you stepping up to this role. Many of you have mentioned, yes, this COVID-19, it's not just a pandemic, but it's also, in my opinion, going to reshape our communities. And what keeps me up at night is knowing that we have so many people in our neighborhoods who are suffering a great deal in a disproportionate fashion. And so it's going to take, I think, a lot of learning from all of us to ensure that we're responding and that we're helping in every possible way. So I, have to, of course, put the plug as the only woman on, in this meeting to say that, of course, I look forward to all of you identifying more women that can be part of this fine police force, so we can also check, that particular box of gender balance is so important. And just really look forward to voting for you, but also continuing to work with you. And also I want to express once again my appreciation for first responders, law enforcement officers who right now are stepping in different capacities as we navigate yet one more unprecedented crises. Unfortunately, we've had others, and this is another one that's very unique. So again, thank you so much, gentlemen, for for stepping up and for serving our communities.
Thank you very much. I do want to be clear, though, that they will not be acting assistant chiefs, but they will be assistant chiefs this afternoon when this vote takes place. I didn't want that to be. I saw the looks on some of your faces, and I thought, oh, brother, that's not what she meant. And the final speaker is going to be Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Council President Katz. I will try to be brief because a lot of what I was going to say has been said. The first thing that I will say is this is long overdue for a number of reasons that we don't need to get into today, but I'm glad in this modified version that we are finally getting to what we should have done previously, which is to move you into the roles that you deserve. There's been nothing acting about the roles that you have been serving in for quite a long time, for many months, that all of us have been working closely with each of you, and you've been doing the job, not acting in the job. And so I really appreciate all of the service and work that you've done. I've been a believer and have said from the beginning of this process, as we were looking at changes in the police department, that we all believe in changes, but that you don't need to be an outsider to be a change agent, and I firmly believe that. There's a benefit to having inside perspective as well, to being lifelong county residents, to understanding the people, the personnel, and the policies, and having familiarity with that in order to make necessary changes. And so I just think it's important to reiterate that point because I felt very strongly and passionately about that as somebody who's come in and changed organizations, some from the outside, some from the inside. I don't think that changes based on where you come from. I think change is something you believe in. And I know each of you believes in the need to change and improve and continue to work with us and work with residents to be able to do that. And extremely grateful. And I was also very much appreciated. I joined the CrimeStat meeting last week and really appreciated being invited by the chief and joining each of you to hear the really great work that our staff is doing on our behalf in the police department, and that our beat officers and the different investigation units are doing, and some of those ongoing investigations. It is true that calls are down, but they're changed, and the role of the officers now is different to keep us safe in different ways, and it's just as important as it's ever been right now. And there's also certain calls that are up, like domestic violence and others, and you all are on the front lines of that. And really do appreciate it. And I will just say that I'm very much looking forward to taking this vote that is long overdue later this afternoon. And our intern in our office, who unfortunately started, Gian Garcia, just before this new normal happened, and so his interning experience has changed. He is watching intently and taking notes today to help us in doing work from home. First of all, I just wanted to say hi to him, but second of all, you all demonstrate to him really great examples of public service and of putting service above self and your commitment to the county. And I think it's a really great moment for me to be able to demonstrate to him some of the great examples that we have in the county of tremendous leaders. And so hello to Gian, and thank you to you for being such a great example for him and so many other young people like him. And I look forward to continuing our work together in these roles that you all are prepared for and have been working towards for so many years.
Thank you very much. And I too look forward to voting for each of you. I've known all of you for many, many years, and I've seen you in a variety of meetings and discussions, and you've always done a wonderful job, each and every one of you. I also want to congratulate you for getting to this spot as a rank, the rank that you're achieving. This is, I know, something that each of you work very hard to do, and it's not something that is missed by any of us. We appreciate all of your work, and I do believe it should be noted that we all need to congratulate Chief Jones for recognizing the talent that he has, and to recognize that the people who he has selected to become his assistant chiefs, no more acting. We've had too much acting in Montgomery County. We need assistant chiefs to be able to do their job and to do it effectively. So with that, we thank each of you for being here. We will vote on you this afternoon. I'm not usually somebody that predicts, but I predict that you each will become an assistant chief this afternoon. Congratulations. And with that, we are going to now go directly to item number 6B, which is an update on the coronavirus COVID-19 from the County Public Health Officer. There again, let me remind my colleagues that everyone from this update has to be out of here by 12:30. They have scheduled other things, and we're running very late. So we will hear from them, and then we'll see how much time, if we have time, for questions. And with that, Dr. Gales and Dr. Stoddard, I don't know who is here at this moment.
Dr. Stoddard's here. I assume you can hear me.
I can. Is Dr. Gales here?
Dr. Gales is in the waiting room. I think someone had to let him in.
I guarantee that's not usual for Dr. Gales, but let's see. There he is. There he is.
Turnabout.
Dr. Gales, can you hear us? Dr. Gales, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, and thank you for being with us, and all of you for being with us. I understand you're under a time constraint, and we appreciate that, and we will honor that. So if you could please begin.
Sure. Well, as you said, I think in your email invitation, you mentioned that we've talked regularly. We spoke yesterday, so I won't go over numbers. I think there were 2 points that, for clarification. One, yes, the order for face coverings are actually consumer and employee protection, as I don't want to focus just on face coverings because there's actually many more items in there that I think will offer more protection for employees and consumers. That went into effect yesterday, and that included a number of provisions requiring face coverings for customers and employees. And requiring employers to make provisions or provide those face coverings to their employees, as well as making sure that they follow sanitation guidelines and put in allowances for workers to wash their hands and other factors to mitigate transmission. The feedback has been positive so far. We do recognize that there's some people who were not happy about it in terms of feeling that it wasn't clear enough. We've put out clarifying language in a number of press conferences, as well as I think the actual order has been shared with folks and is being communicated on. I am talking with the state about other potential items to add, other venues that may benefit from that. So stay tuned. I'm not able to comment on that at this point because I don't have confirmation, but we are actively exploring other potential spaces that may qualify and benefit from similar provisions. I think the second component was around testing capacity. Our third VEEP site testing is to date. We have trained additional staff to be able to offer testing and made some provisions within the schedule that we hope to be able to test up to 100 people each time. In addition to that, as I referenced yesterday, I was literally typing the email as the Zoom invite came through, we're looking to create this mobile, how to address the issue of access for folks who don't have a provider in terms of getting that referral. And so we are trying to get the details in terms of working out potentially a mobile hotline that is staffed by a provider, a clinician, who can triage an individual's symptoms and be able to order a test in the system that could utilize our VEEP testing sites, as well as we're working on exploring some other potential venues that could absorb some of that testing capacity. There are some conversations around working with some additional vendors and identifying others who may be able to provide testing capacity beyond our current relationship with Quest and LabCorp. None of those conversations have been finalized. We have requested information to be provided from those who have discussed. We've discussed that with, and our contracts team is reviewing those to provide feedback. I think the third component to talk about and discuss is, as we discussed yesterday, the data component. The governor, we won't rehash that, but that was released or partially released on Sunday. Our chief epidemiologist has completed an up-to-date map of the county to provide information on incidents by zip code. We are not putting out the specific numbers, but however, consistent with other jurisdictions, including Baltimore, Chicago, Anne Arundel County, and other places, we are using a color-coded map to give folks a sense of the ranges of incidents in each of their particular zip codes. In addition to that, we are continuing to break the data down by gender and age. We still do not have complete data by race from the state. And a new graphic that shows cumulative incidents as well as daily incidents. The last data piece to mention is the folks have talked about what we're looking at, how we're measuring our surge and our peak. There are some models that suggest that our peak will actually happen within the next week. And by peak, that means just our maximum, the maximum number of daily deaths and cases to experience. And then, not to say that we won't have new cases after that. It's just the maximum number will be experienced on date X. And so we are, our statistician, our EpiConnect at University of Maryland, who's also utilizing the University of Washington model that many jurisdictions are using, and is actually the model and expertise that is informing the state in terms of their predictions, is compiling our numbers. We've just sent the most recent ones to him, and he's working on that, and we hope to have more information on that this afternoon. I think that hit a lot of the points that you had asked me to comment on. I will stop there in the interest of time for Dr. Stoddard to give his update, and as always, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple questions, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to be very quick in their questions for you, Dr. Gales. The first is Councilmember Joando.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Dr. Gales, Dr. Stoddard, for all the work you're doing. Two quick questions for you, Dr. Gales. One related to the disparities work. I know, as we've discussed, many of us, this council sent a letter to the governor. Some of the information was released. The zip code information was released, which can be correlated to race because we know census data and we know that, but it's not, as you've said many times, that doesn't necessarily serve as the only proxy for race. When you say that you don't have the data, complete data for race and ethnicity from the state, could you just talk about that and what you're doing to help address that situation, either with the state or with the information we have here, in light of the other steps you're talking about with pop-up testing and trying to get people who have referrals, who have trouble getting referrals? Could you just talk about that in that context, please?
Sure. Well, to the first point in terms of the access to the data that was released by the state, and as we talked about it yesterday as relates to zip code, is in a rush to release data, is it actually complete data? And so, for example, when looking at I think the state data that's been released on race is maybe for, I think, 75% of the cases. It's not for 100%. Right. And there's a lot of data missing on race. And in fact, I think it's only Black, white, and other. So again, it's difficult to extrapolate from that. Now, what we're trying to do is, as many of you all are aware of our previous analysis that broke down the status of health by zip codes in the county, we are trying to use those measures to overlay on incidents. And then also, once we get more data on the fatalities within the county, to try to see if there's any relationship we can draw between race, specific location of housing, type of job, that kind of stuff, in terms of folks who are coming up positive, and then also any correlation with those who are dying, to see if there's anything that correlates with the negative and adverse outcomes. The information that was, and even in releasing the zip code data, we don't have specifics to say, of the 1,800 cases in Montgomery County, we don't have a breakdown to say 40 of them worked as construction workers, 70 of them worked as teachers. Right. And so we're trying to piece together as much as we can to see if we can find any causal relationships that point to easily identifiable areas that we can implement interventions to address that specifically target those groups. Now, taking a step back, there are some other actions that we are looking to take. For example, I think that increasing testing capacity will be significant, because even in these numbers where we get the zip code information and we put the daily totals up, that's an undercount because we know everyone's not getting tested, and that doesn't factor in the number of people who may have been advised to stay at home and quarantine without actually getting tested.
Right.
So those are the things we're working on. I think there are a host of other things that could be explored. I think that given that a lot of communities of color in particular are benefiting from the social support network through our nonprofit agencies, I think that creates an opportunity for additional support there.
Yeah.
I think there are, in terms of recovery related to health, I know that we've talked about in previous conversations with the council overall, how we can build a better social support network to address social determinants for chronic disease management. And I think there may be some creative strategies, again, just throwing out ideas. I know that the New York Times had a great op-ed over the weekend that discussed how to address health disparities in the context of COVID-19, as well as create substantial structural changes in the future. And I think, that introduces some ideas such as microloan programs that work. And I'm just throwing these out there, so don't hold me to it. I'm just throwing out ideas to be able to invest in folks so that they can get their social support needs met in the interim, because again, we know that so many of those social determinants impact their health outcome, whether we're talking about their chronic disease or outcome related to COVID.
I appreciate that, and thank you. I know we've been in conversation, and Councilmember Navarro, who I'm sure will speak here, and I live in the second highest zip code in the state with the most cases, and we're working on an effort on an appropriation to implement some of the things you discussed and some of the things that have been in the New York Times article. And so I'll be talking to my colleagues over the next week and appreciate the dialogue on that. The other quick question related to the grocery store and safety, and you mentioned the face covering, it's a larger issue. We have postponed action on the bag tax suspension. The underlying issue there was that as we head into the curve, we're trying to limit contact with any potential vector or any thing that could spread the disease. I read an article the other day about people's shoes. I mean, so there's a lot of things out there. And so if you could just comment about the reusable bags. I know you've given guidance on, again, and my proposal would not eliminate the ability to use them, but it would just incentivize and not penalize people who didn't feel comfortable or weren't allowed by stores who have taken steps to stop the use of the bags. I know you've issued guidance on how to clean and how to safely use them. Could you just comment on the bag issue in that context and potential health benefits and precautions that people can take?
Well, I would say I would just reiterate what we've mentioned before in terms of I think there was a peer-reviewed article that looked at it. There is not a ton of evidence that gives a clear picture of what the risks are. Quite frankly, in public health perspective, I think it would carry minimal risk in comparison to some of the other things, such as wearing a face covering or coughing on your hand and touching items that way. And so from that perspective, our energy has been, recommending folks to say, we don't know what the risks are. We think based upon what we know, it's minimal. But if you're going to use it, here's how to properly use it. I know in some cases they've talked about how, grocery stores, if you do bring your bags, and that's actually how we shop, you can, bag your own groceries. If you're going through a line with a cashier or if you're utilizing self-checkout, you can use that space. And I know that a lot of entities, at least in the last couple of times where I've gone out shopping, whether it's been at Target or Safeway or Whole Foods, have actually cleaned the site where I've used it and had the bag after each person uses it. So I think, and I say all that to say that, the risk is unclear. We think it's very minimal. And so we're educating people on that you can use them. This is how to best use them in combination with making sure that the surfaces are clean, again, which is what we've recommended from the very beginning.
I appreciate that, and I look forward to continuing that conversation as we head to the passage or the consideration of the bill. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, and we're at 11:56, so please, we are under a times constraint. Councilmember Raymer.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about Dr. Gales, the correlation between peak of
hospital usage and peak of transmission in the community. I think our community is unclear what it means about peak usage, and you sort of mentioned a few points. Can you just talk a little bit about what you mean when you talk about peaks?
So you're right. There's multiple terms, and actually it underscores why we've been very careful about how we speak about it in public. And in terms of rushing to say, yay, the peak of transmission is tomorrow, because we recognize people will say, oh, well, if the peak is tomorrow, then after tomorrow, we're fine. So there are two different terms. So there is the peak of transmission, meaning that based upon models, based upon the numbers, we think that might be the greatest burden of disease or new cases at that point. Now, the peak hospitalization rate is a little bit different. So as you can imagine, even if we experience a peak in the number of maximum number of cases on a daily basis, there are people still going to get sick every day. And so part of that is informed not only by the numbers that come in, but the quality of illness and the percentage of people requiring hospitalization. And that one we don't know. To date, the percentage hospitalized has been somewhere between the 20 and 25% range. And so that stayed constant. As number of cases have increased, we've seen the fatality rate increase. I think it's now at about 3% across the state. So those two factors, more so than the maximum number of cases on a daily basis, will drive the hospitalization surge unit. So I hope that explains the two different components and how we look at them together, but also look at them separately.
Thank you. I want to thank you for your order on masks. I really appreciate it. I do think we should look at buses. I think in that enclosed space, I'm concerned about that, but thank you for taking quick action.
No problem. And we are looking into that, so hopefully I'll be able to comment further soon.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Dr. Gales, and thank you, everybody. And I quickly just, in the interest of time, just wanted to request that perhaps we try to schedule an actual session item on the issue of disparities. I believe that although we are right now, being very proactive and standing up some teams to begin to work on what could we do immediately, I'm also aware that, as you have said, Dr. Gales, most likely as we start getting more data and more testing, I worry that, of course, we're going to see other kinds of increases in other parts of the county that we know are predominantly of color, and also that has a disproportionate amount of people who are low income. And so I think having some kind of a template where we can very quickly go on a checklist and look at issues like you were mentioning, for example, microloans. We have a microloan program or other kinds of, emergency cash assistance, because there are so many ripples in terms of the impact, not just on the health, but also on the economics and the, self-sufficiency issues. But it would be nice to have some kind of a template that we can quickly, deploy. And I do look forward to the team that is going to begin to do that work. And I know some of my colleagues have already started to have conversations about it. But just wanted to request a formal actual session item so that we can, address this in a much more holistic fashion. Because although right now, yes, it's, 20904, 20902, 20906, which are, 20904 is where I live, but it's also, I think, split between District 4 and as well as District 5, Councilman Hooker. I think we can expect that we will also see other zip codes with similar demographic makeup and characteristics also beginning to see that surge. So anyway, thank you all for everything that you're doing. And again, I look forward to continuing to work with you to continue addressing, this very unprecedented time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Stoddard, please.
Thank you. And I'll keep my comments brief because I know that Ms. Parker and Mr. Hartman are here to provide updates on the public messaging side as well. So a couple key things I want to update on. So effective yesterday, Fire Rescue activated phase 1 and 2 of their pandemic surge plan, which essentially puts more advanced life support and basic life support units out on the streets 9 to 5 every day. They deployed decon units to each of the 6 hospitals, assigned an EMS officer to the 911 center, and have deployed additional mobile integrated health units into the field to allow them to respond to what, as Dr. Gales referred to, we expect to be the surge this week. As it relates to personal protective equipment, we've given updates on this many times before, and I think it's important to continue to do that. We are in a bit better shape than we were a couple weeks ago. Obviously, we've received a huge number of donations. We've also had some success in getting some orders in and had some resources provided by the state to us, which is great. We're getting since Friday, we've gotten 75 requests for personal protective equipment from healthcare providers, non-healthcare providers in Montgomery County. Those include nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and in-home care providers, pediatric providers, and the like. We provided 2 weeks worth of personal protective equipment to the nursing homes and assisted living facilities on last Wednesday and Thursday, so they are in good shape this week. And given what we expect to receive in terms of shipments from the state tomorrow, as well as a shipment that we're actually going to pick up in Pennsylvania tomorrow, we're expecting to be in fairly good shape to be able to resupply them going into next week. There is both an online ordering process, which is on the COVID-19 website, as well as a paper variant that healthcare providers can make requests of for personal protective equipment, and we're considering the HHS equity process in distributing that PPE, moving forward. We have distributed face coverings to county staff and employees. We recognize that those initial face coverings are meant to be, they're not sturdy enough to do for long-term use, and we're going to continue to replace those as we receive additional sturdier, more reusable face coverings. We started receiving those a week and a half ago. We can receive about between 1,000 and 2,000 of those a week, and we'll continue to replace what we provide to our county staff during this period of time. I do want to highlight, because I think it's really important to understand, we've received a ton of donations and volunteer efforts. It's really important that our community has really stepped up on this. There's a group called NOCO Mask Makers, which are essentially a community group that is essentially producing face coverings and providing them free to nursing homes and other food providers, other partners that are in need of those masks. And so it's really important. It's really great that our community stepped up in the way that they have to provide that support. We're receiving donations of materials, fabric, masks, etc., through our Dennis Avenue Health Center, as well as the Public Safety Headquarters. We have schedules to cover essentially Monday through Saturday to receive donations in various locations. I briefly want to touch on a couple things that we haven't talked a whole lot about, which is, a couple things that we have talked about, and then I'll talk about one more thing that we haven't talked about. So Food Security Task Force, we stood up last week. There was another meeting this afternoon. Dr. Crowell and I participated in that, as well as the Food Council. Others from HHS and Emergency Management partnered together with the nonprofit community to address food access issues. We've seen significant increases in food access requests, and we want to make sure that we're staying on top of those and responding to surges where we can, as well as ensuring the protection of food workers who are in our nonprofit environments, make sure they have the hand sanitizer and other supplies they need to be able to safely provide the food to our residents moving forward. I expect that after today's meeting, they're going to produce a short-term needs report that'll help us inform us on how we can move forward with providing resources to the community. We've gotten questions about 311 recently. I think it's important. I want to go over that real quick. So roughly 311 calls COVID-related are about 9% of our volume as of yesterday. That's pretty consistent over the last week, 9 to 11%, which is down from 15 to 20% the previous week, which is that means the messaging is getting out there. There were 15 calls yesterday related to the new health order, meaning that there is some questions that have come up from the public about the mask order or the coverings order, but not a insurmountable level of interest there. Calls continue to focus on service modifications, ride-on and solid waste. We have seen, particularly in our Spanish language queue, an increase in requests related to MANA and other food access issues, which is again supported by what we're seeing in the Food Security Task Force. And so that is an important thing for us to understand. We are seeing that increase in need. Finally, I want to talk about two things we haven't talked about. So our Emergency Support Function 14 community recovery has been stood up. What that looks like is we're trying to make sure that, as I think Councilmember Navarro said during the interviews for the new Assistant Chiefs for Police, Montgomery County will look different after this is over with than it does today. Certainly than it does today, and certainly than it did before this event started. And we need to recognize there are some things that will be done differently, but there are also some opportunities for how we can do things better. And we want to make sure that we're learning those throughout, even as we respond. The response is not over, it's not close to over, but we have a responsibility to our residents to learn the lessons today that we can apply for the future in terms of how we can iterate on our process in the response, but also make modifications both in terms of health disparities, how county government operates, how we deliver services in the future. And so we're standing up our recovery function to make sure that we're learning those lessons now and can record them in a way that allows us to make real substantive change after this is over with. Finally, the county executive is today signing the CARES Act request submission through the Department of the Treasury. That will entitle Montgomery County to $183 million plus dollars in support. We are told that there will be some additional guidance coming on April 24th about how we can actually utilize those dollars. Right now, it's essentially, non-budgeted items related to COVID-19 response. But obviously, if we can get into the realm of economic impacts, we will blow through that 183 very quickly, thinking about the economic impact on our community and our residents and county government. But obviously, we need some more guidance on whether that is an applicable use of the funding as well. And so, more to come on that. I will stop there.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And so my question is for Dr. Gales and for Dr. Stoddard. The first one, very quickly. For resource leads, we've all been getting resource leads. Who should we send that information to? For example, folks who say they have connections with ventilators, masks, et cetera. Who should we send that information to?
You can send it to myself and Ash Shetty, our procurement director. We are working jointly together for anything that's a pre-procurement or acquisition of resources. If there are donations, certainly we have a donations team that's set up, but you can send them to me and we'll get them in the right place. Myself and Ash will work together.
Excellent. Then just one other quick one, and then one for Dr. Gales. Mask compliance, we've already started hearing complaints in the zip code 20904 at Home Depot, Silver Spring, to where folks weren't adhering to the guidance of ensuring that folks have masks as we get more of those concerns, complaints. Who should we send those to?
So those complaints can go through, they're directed to the Licensing and Regulatory Service team, so they can call 311. Those complaints are, they are taken and a written documentation of it, and then it's forwarded to the Licensing and Regulatory Services team to do an investigation. I will point out that our team yesterday did some random check-ins in places to see how compliant people were. And so that's the way people can get that information in, and our team will do the follow-up assessment.
Excellent. And then my last question is a little bit harder for Dr. Gales. Of course,
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, you're off again, Craig. We're gonna move on then, and as soon as Craig gets back on, we'll let him ask his question.
No hard questions are allowed. That's what the computer.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Dr. Gale's got his wish, Craig. That's what that was. While we're waiting, Julie Parker, would you like to give us an update?
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
Yes, I'm back. I'm
we had a lot of nice things to say about you while you were gone.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Dr. Gales is like, great. I get off the hook for the hard question.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah.
Dr. Gales, and I'm going to say this quickly. Our schools, we're trying to make a decision now. We're nearing the end of April. I know that you said that we appear to be getting close to flattening the curve. Does this mean that we can look at reopening our schools, or is this something that still signifies a significant risk to our community and we should retain not having people in groups together? Obviously, you can't have schools to where you have 6-foot distancing, all those kinds of things. It's just not possible. So from that perspective, is it realistic for us to expect schools to open anytime soon?
I think the reality is it's not realistic because even if we do see evidence, kind of extra to use last week, I think there was a day where we saw only 300, I think it was like 375 new cases, and we're like, oh, this is a significant departure from the increases of like 500 and 600 the previous days. And so we caution folks to say, let's just see how many data points we get. And the next day we had worst day, we had over 1,000 new cases the following day. So even if we do see evidence of a flattening of the curve or a peak and a turn in the opposite direction, it's going to take it's going to be a significant amount of time to continue those practices of social distancing and sheltering in place to make sure that that flattening of the curve has fully happened. So the reality is, I don't think it's realistic to expect any changes in the schools opening at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dr. Gales.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro, did you have a question?
Thank you, Dr. Stoddard. Well, first, in terms of the comment you just made regarding the post-COVID-19 world, you're absolutely right. And we definitely will have very many different categories that we will have to examine. And those conversations have begun as well. I know some of my colleagues have already begun to talk about other areas other than just the economic reality, but just other areas that you just described. So I'm glad that you're already thinking about this as well. I think that the sooner that we're able to put forth some kind of a blueprint that we then tweak as we go, the better we're going to be, instead of waiting until afterwards. So I appreciate that. Another question in terms of like referrals. So I think I may have sent you guys an email. It's kind of crazy, but so I know I was approached by some county residents who have worked on, there's a particular doctor who lives here who has worked on technology and things of that nature. I think working specifically with nursing homes who are at very high risk levels, and wanted to connect with you. What is the best way to connect those folks who are eager to help and have particular areas of expertise that could be useful for us, and of course our county residents, which I think is also wonderful. But is the best way to go directly to you, or is there somebody else? I know you guys are so busy.
Yes, so we've got a joint team that's looking at volunteerism opportunities, and that includes both our Medical Reserve Corps, our Community Emergency Response Team, CERT team. And so depending on what the skill set of the person who's looking to volunteer, we can provide different opportunities and talk through exactly what their skill set is most applicable for. But I think the best place to go would be, so Netta Squires on my staff has been really helping to coordinate the volunteering opportunities. If she can't help directly, she'll get whomever it is in the right place. And so you can copy me as well, and I can help as well. But certainly we've got a team looking at volunteer opportunities in partnership. She actually sits full time at the Dennis Avenue Health Center Command Center, coordinating with HHS and emergency management to make sure we get the volunteers in the right places.
Great. And I don't know if this is a volunteer specific issue. I think it was more about some technology that may be available. So if it's something like that, would Netta be the same person that she can discern who to go to?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. We can figure out exactly. We've obviously had opportunities that are both business offer opportunities, as well as we've actually had a few research studies that have been affiliated with universities, and so we'll route them depending on what the nature of the offer is of support. We're trying not to turn away any offers of support across any opportunity. So certainly we can get in the right place.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And let me just say that I actually had communication with Netta Squires yesterday, or I think it was yesterday. It might have been the day before. And she's certainly very, very efficient, and I know that she's doing a wonderful job. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you. I just had a couple of quick questions. So we have been getting some constituent concerns regarding businesses that are in fact non-essential, but that are making their employees go to work. Who should they call but they're afraid to lose their jobs? Who should they call, Dr. Stoddard, to report something like that, and what recourse do they have available to them?
I think Dr. Gales can actually probably answer that. There was an order put out by the governor's office last Monday, I believe, allowing the health departments to enforce those orders. Dr. Gales, I think you can.
I think I'm unmuted. So yes, if there are folks, again, you can refer them to us. And we do there were extended orders or powers, so to speak, that the governor has conveyed onto health officers to be able to implement penalties as severe as being shut down indefinitely if there is failure to comply with the directive.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And we can keep those anonymous so that if people wanted to make a concern or a complaint without being identified for fear of retribution, that can be arranged as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Dr. Gales, for people whom are concerned they may have the virus, testing is obviously still an issue as we wait to get tests. But what should we encourage people to do that have it? I assume it's still drink a lot of liquids, rest, do all those things that you would normally do with any other virus, or there are other special things that people should do if they are concerned they have it? Is there something that has been proven to be more effective to help with some of what people are experiencing?
You pretty much directed. I mean, it's supportive care. Unfortunately, there is no treatment at this time. And I want to be clear that although I know folks who are a little bit further south than we are recommending hydrochloroquine, that is not an effective treatment measure and one that we don't recommend. And we hope that if there are folks who have, if you have evidence that there are myths related to that in the community, please let us know, because we want folks to be very clear about the risk of using that drug, one for themselves, but also in taking away medication that many who have autoimmune diseases require and need for their treatment regimens. So it really is supportive care, making sure folks get rest, they stay hydrated, those are the big things. And if there is any significant change in their conditions, so for example, if they have increased shortness of breath, to seek medical attention, because then if their symptom course is worsening, the sooner they can get seen by a doctor and get some increased supportive care, that may help offset the severity of their symptoms over the period of time.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Julie Parker.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to appear before you. And I also wanted to thank you all for your leadership. First and foremost, as a Montgomery County resident, it is remarkable to be on the inside and to be able to watch the level of dedication across this government and the amount of manpower and man hours that have gone into trying to manage this pandemic. Your diligence and your concern over meeting the needs of this very diverse community, it's noteworthy. And in part, out of that attention to the needs of our very diverse community was born our Special Populations Communications team. I'll touch on that in a little bit, but that team, who is headed up by Ken Hartman and Diane Vu, they work closely with us on the COVID-19 communications team to strategize about how best to meet the needs of so many in our community, what messages will resonate more with others. And so we are tied at the hip, joined at the hip as we try to communicate so much information. Media relations and social media, as you know, is a 24/7 job, and many of us have been working close to that. So I passed along for you a one-pager for your reference, and I'll just go through that. I won't dive deep or too deep into the numbers, but I felt that these specific examples might help paint the picture of what we've been working on. So I mentioned Ken and Diane's team, and the COVID-19 team works closely with them to translate news releases, to create graphics that will resonate with the community, all communities. We try to make these as simple as possible and have these graphics be another tool to help people easily digest information. Not everyone has the time or the inclination or the means to read a news release, for example, or to watch a 10-minute video, but infographics are a great way to reach all sorts of communities. So we've paid a lot of attention to that. On our website, and I believe, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe this is the most robust time in our county government's history in terms of reaching such a broad audience. So there are there are communications that are posted on our website in Spanish, French, Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, and Amharic. And all of that falls under Ken and Diane's team, and they will speak in detail, but I just wanted to give you broad strokes on that. The COVID-19 communications team is responsible for, among other things, news releases. And we captured a window between March 12th and April 7th, where we put out 84 news releases related to COVID-19 information. 50 of those are in English, 34 of those in Spanish. Again, working closely with Ken and Diane's team, they decide what information should be translated and into which languages. But 84 is a noteworthy amount of information to send out to the media and beyond just the media. This is, as always, a broad communications effort is meant to reach the media, who can then amplify our message to their tremendous audiences. But at the same time, we're also reaching the very active and engaged and interested Montgomery County community. I believe on our media distribution email list, there are some 7,000 people. So this is county government employees who have signed up. These are community members who are just interested in the content that we push to the media. So we are reaching a big audience, and more to come on that. Our COVID-19 updates newsletter now goes out twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. We've had 9 of these newsletters go out between March 15th and April 10th. Each of those newsletters, on average, reaches about 380,000 recipients. It's tremendous reach. Initially, that newsletter was branded as the paperless airplane. It's something the county had established long before this pandemic. We rebranded that so that people who saw that in their inbox would see COVID-19 updates and knew to open that to get anything related to this World Health crisis. In doing so, the change prompted the open rate to jump from 23% to 38%. And that is a tremendous way for us to reach the community. And it covers a whole host of things, from messages from leadership, from where people can find meals, school updates, the health order, how to create a face covering for when you're going to the grocery store. There are videos there, graphics there, news releases in there. We're also handling a tremendous volume of media inquiries between news releases, news conferences, media briefings, virtual media briefings, virtual community briefings, 2 of which we have this week. We're speaking with the media tomorrow, and also another community briefing on Thursday. All of that has generated approximately 200 national and local media inquiries that we have handled in this 4.5 or so weeks. Our social media accounts have also a tremendous reach. It's a way that people can communicate directly with us and us to them. Since this started, over the last approximate 30 days, the Montgomery County government's Twitter following has jumped by about 3,000. The Facebook page following has increased by about 5,700. Facebook page likes about 3,800. And then Nextdoor, which is an app that many people use, and it's neighborhood specific. It's sort of a hyper-local platform. The amount of people there have jumped about 6,000. Again, this is over the course of 30 days. So there are a multitude of ways that we are reaching various segments of the community. And then finally, in part, the COVID-19 communications team helps to populate the county's web pages. There is a COVID-19 dedicated page, and we help to feed that content. It is a work in progress to help make it more easily navigated, to help people figure out where to go, how to find what they probably want most. Many of you may have been on that site and seen the state demographics and statistics coming from the state. We will this week have Montgomery County generated content maps that is focused on our community specifically. So stay tuned for a news release on that. And I think I'll leave it there for the Special Populations Communications team.
Thank you very much. Before we go to Ken Hartman, Dr. Gales and Dr. Stoddard, if you have to leave, we understand. We know that everyone's a little busy, so we do appreciate it. And Ken, it would not be a reflection on what you have to say if they have to leave. So anyhow, Ken, would you like to speak, please?
Sure, I'll be brief. I sent in a 2-page summary for all of you to review. There's a lot of work. It's been a whirlwind of activity over the last, 5 weeks, 4.5 weeks now. But some four basic highlights that we're working on, and we are working on under the principle that when we come out of this, our systems need to be better than they were before. As Dr. Gale said, substantial and substantive changes need to be made. So with that, with everything on those 2 pages, we are looking at evaluating and growing our networks, not just to have people on a list, but to have effective networks that can then relay information, particularly partnerships with our community organizations. And I want to thank council staff for helping us reach out to a number of community organizations that in turn communicate with populations. The second thing is improving that translation capacity. We have stood up a team of 20 county employees with advanced skills. Pretty much the entire list of folks who get paid for their language skills are on this translation team in 6 languages. But we are also looking at other models from other agencies and other jurisdictions that should be the end result when we end this. We need to maximize our social media. We stood up the WhatsApp account in Spanish. It's been very popular. The membership is growing. And it serves as an example that for each of our populations, everyone has their own platform that they prefer, and we need to be on those platforms. And then the last thing is this local messaging and relevant messaging. We spend a lot of time translating a lot of material, and sometimes it's just the simple, short, easy to understand message is the best way to communicate. And we're on those 2 pages. I have some of our challenges that we're working with. As everyone knows, we're working we only have so many people working on so many things, and so expanding that bandwidth to avoid bottlenecks. So we've brought on a graphics artist to help us produce graphics in multiple languages. We're opening up the new social media channels, and we're looking forward to partnering with the county on the channel that on Facebook that we've been talking about. Messaging, I talked about that. And the last thing is something we all know, the barriers. We need those partnerships with our community associations so that we can, there's somebody who can aid our populations. We're working on this with the business grants and nonprofit grants, where not only is the county a resource, but we're talking to the Ethiopian Community Center and to the Chinese Cultural Association to have them be able to help us help businesses in languages where they're more comfortable. And then lastly, diagnosing the bottlenecks. There have been several occasions when we've looked at something, and then when you look further at the numbers and the websites and so on and so on, you see that our system is not 100% accessible. So diagnosing and tracing back where those barriers are is a continuous project for us. So I'll stop there. I do want to give a shout out to Councilmember Navarro and her staff, who have been fantastic. I mean, the WhatsApp was a great recommendation. I know the embassies use it, and they use it very well. I also want to thank Councilmember Albornoz for recording some messages that we'll be sending out on social media and to radio stations, because on the weekend the news in Spanish isn't there, so maybe we can have Gabe's voice there instead. But I want to thank everyone for their support. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you. I'll be brief, but really don't want to miss the opportunity to congratulate Mr. Hartman and the team, Julie. Everybody has just, come together so quickly to take on, once again, an unprecedented task. I have to also acknowledge and thank Carolyn Chen and Lillian Mass with Sonia Healy leading that team, and of course, many of our own staff on council offices. Berta Sersosimo has done a lot of great work. This is what it takes. And, working with Councilmember Albornoz from the very beginning, we knew that we needed to kind of organize this a little differently. And it was just, I think, wonderful to very quickly, as we started to put a list together, we were able to come up with a really strong team. And again, this is seamless collaboration. This is not a council thing. This is not an executive thing. This is county government coming together very, very quickly. And I can see the impact. I mean, it is definitely evident. And so, as we also continue to do this post-COVID-19 work, the only thing I will say very quickly is that, we don't have to look too far, because I think MCPS has done an amazing job with how they communicate. And way back in the day when I was on the Board of Education, I helped set up the translation unit. It's been a real asset. So I would just suggest that we, look at that carefully, because what we are learning here is definitely those gaps, and we've been able to fill those gaps quickly, but we should do this as just a matter of course, from now on, regardless. But thank you so much. Very critical, especially when we talk about the disproportionality information that we just got from those zip codes. Information is key. So I know some of us are going to be working specifically on that issue, but I'm glad that we already have this infrastructure that has been, already stood up for this kind of work. Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Thank you all very, very much for being here. We're going, and we sincerely appreciate all your help. We held you over a full 4 minutes more, so hopefully that'll fit into your schedules. But we are going to go on recess. To my colleagues, and anyone else listening, we're going to start again at 1:30, and we're going to begin with the introduction of the legislative session day 13. Thank you, and we'll be back at 1:30.
Get in the car and you go out and do that.
Right.
That needs to change in order to be more walkable,